general, you know, being able to be together and get that synergy before the tournament starts is going to be so important. You need to make sure that you get into it as well. But here we go.
Oh boy.
Game number 1 of the first series of the Esports World Cup presenting Teamfight Tactics.
All right, so again, remember, for anyone who's unfamiliar, who maybe came in late, ZETA Division from Japan versus Wolves Esports, with a connection to the UK as well through their founding parties there, but represented entirely by the Chinese players. We said ZETA coming in, we're very much expecting to see big things out of Title. Historically, Title has been the head, really, of the country, TFT-wise, you know, that everybody looks up to.
Exactly. I think that when you speak about a Title, when you speak about APEC in general as well, you always think of Title as one of the best. Was so close at reaching that double World Championship as well. Was able to win the World Championship in Set 8 in Runeterra Reforged, but now is back here in a 4v4 stage, trying to win the Esports World Cup presenting Teamfight Tactics.
Well, of course, as was mentioned before, you know, as well as Title may do and may well be enabled by the team, that won't be enough by himself. You can still absolutely lose a 4v4 match, even if you take first place.
No, I think that's totally understandable. I think that in general, when we speak about strategies that players are going to be trying to get in this 4v4 format, we're going to be seeing players maybe looking to try and win streak potentially early on, try and get one player win streak in, and then the rest trying to kind of lose streak in to kind of scout around and see what the other players on the opposite team are doing. But we're already seeing Title already putting that witchcrafting, Casio being one of them units that works so well with someone like Syndra, which in the pre-show the analysts were talking so highly about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, we've got this idea, which I think Yupasan brought up on the desk, of players, you know, generally wanting to have an ace on the team. You know, the person who gets pushed forward gets the most preferential treatment. But I think you mentioned to me before, you know, a really big thing to consider here is, you know, Title, who's the obvious choice here for ZETA Division as the ace, may not be the one with the strongest starting position.
No, I think that's where we have to kind of look at when we look at the start of these boards. Who has the strongest position? Who's going to be the person to try and lose streak? Because in a 4v4 format, streaking is the most important thing. Getting as much economy as possible. And we haven't even mentioned about like team damage as well. You have to be so careful because in these early stages, you have multiple players that you can come up against. So you have to try and figure things out.
So we are on Gold and Prelude, so we know across the board we'll be seeing Gold augments coming in. Of course, we did mention Hero augments opened up as a distinct possibility here. Hopefully one of our players will be able to find one of them. Of course, we've got powerful options on the deck already here. Support Golem, we know, incredibly popular.
Yeah, Support Golem, just the gold and even the prismatic version as well. I feel like just for the support item, but also being able to get that kind of extra unit, quote unquote, I guess you could say, on the board as well, because the Support Golem can do so incredibly well. So it's an augment that we're expecting to see, but not just yet, unfortunately, as we see one of our first charms being picked up as well.
Yeah, of course, Charm's going to be another thing to add to the mix alongside as long as was mentioned on the pre-show as well. Our players getting a choice of those every couple of rerolls, but only one per round. Of course, that's going to be an extra facet to the team strategy as well, as making sure your charms match up with what your role is at this point on your team.
And I think this is such a crazy strategy here by Lishao. I think the big thing is that he did take Flexible as the first augment, which is a very scaling augment that you're going to get a lot of emblems over time. He was able to get the charm to get the Magnetic Remover and the Reforger. He reforges his emblem into Shapeshifters, which can be incredibly strong. If you can find all of these Shapeshifters in the early game, it can be incredible frontline. It can scale incredibly well into the late game.
Yeah, kind of functionally ending up as bruisers, just big sacks of HP and getting the job done very well. But we do see a player who set themselves up very well for success. So Shimmers, we've got the Blade along with the Guinsus as well. That's a massive amount of attack speed, generating gold and also raising the interest cap as well, which means YGQF can go really big in this game.
And I think this is going to be really surprising. I feel like for some people maybe watching at home that like, isn't Syndra a caster? Doesn't she want more mana? Doesn't she want more ability power? But actually, people are prioritizing a lot of attack speed on Syndra because of her scaling. The more times that she casts, the more power that she's going to get in her ability. So being able to get a Syndra this early on in the game means that you'll be able to get them cast off more often. As you can see, with so much attack speed that you can get on this Syndra, maybe looking to lose streak early on, trying to get maybe that one extra gold, and there you go, the one extra gold to try and hit that interest bounty in the end. But getting the extra early Syndra, being able to cost so often because of that attack speed, can get that scaling point on a lot sooner.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting almost as much benefit just from drawing out the round as you are from winning it. As we do see Kaito there with slamming, so we're starting to get a little bit of the sense of the pitch of what people are going for here. ZETA going for a more aggressive stance. Of course, the red buff can be very popular around the place. A decently strong front line to start off. As we look on the right-hand side, we can see we've got a couple of Wolves, Zerain and Shelty, who are currently managing to keep their win streaks intact.
Yeah, I think the big thing now is that you have to look at like Shelty and Sharon, you know, which one do you want to prioritize as a win streak? Because we have to feel like, hey, these two players on Wolves Esports can actually go up against each other. So which one are you looking to prioritize? We'll have to see if they come up against each other. They're not, so it is going to be Sharon at the moment trying to keep that win streak. Slamming the extra items. Eldritch was something that the pre-show analyst was mentioning as this kind of vertical comp, but in the early game, again, being able to get that extra unit on the board can be so powerful. But on the other side, the other board is also looking really strong with the Edge of Night, but I think that extra unit being on the cards at the moment is just way too powerful for Sharon right now.
Yeah, managed to keep that streak intact, and it looks like, we'll check in a second, it seems like all of our players, all three of the players who are win streaking have managed to maintain that win streak into the carousel.
Yeah, big things. We have 3 players on a win streak at the moment. We have Title and Lixiao at the bottom as well on a lose streak, and then we have people around the middle of the pack. So the big thing now, as I mentioned, is, you know, we're still looking at Sharon and Shelty in the early game. Which one of these 2 players can keep their win streak on the side of Wolf Esports? And there might be a situation where Title and Lixiao, if they haven't played against each other as well, they're going to try and keep that lose streak, which, as I mentioned at the start, lose streaking in general, win streaking is so important to keep that economy, especially in a reroll meta.
And I kind of like this idea from the Japanese side here of having Title taking a more lose streaking position, because you know that all eyes are generally going to be on him in this matchup anyway. So putting him in a more passive spot, at least to start with, seems to make sense to me.
Augment here for Shelty is one of the new augments.
Oh, the Pilfer.
Pilfer, yes. This is actually augment I played yesterday as well when I was playing some games. This augment is actually incredible. You can get so much economy early on, and also in the late game. You get that little bit of gold early on, but every single time the first kind of unit that you kill, you're going to get a copy, a 1-star copy of that unit. So you'll be able to get extra economy every single round. As you can see, you know, a little bit of extra gold already for Shelty, already up to 20 gold this early on.
And of course, if you do end up in a contested situation and you're going up against the person you're contesting with, it's going to be even better as well. It does look like it's going to be a little tight here on the tail end of this particular round. As yep, there we go, the streak doesn't go up. I think, as you said, with Pilfer, more on the economic side of things, will certainly pay off longer term, but wasn't giving the board strength directly.
There's quite a few people at the moment on a bit of a streak, but you're seeing Title at the moment. Look at this, a really, really big loss streak for Title right now. He is only on 81 HP, but has 50 gold in the bank already. Has the 2 lesser champion duplicators as well, which can get that Syndra online sooner.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what it's going to be doing there, because we've got a chance to cash those in early on, but holding far for the time being. We are seeing a pretty even split across the board, with Taro being the only person from ZETA Division able to keep the streak potentially into the first PvE round.
And if ZETA at the moment can keep Taro on a win streak and keep Title on a lose streak, they're in a great position at the moment in this game, because Taro is going to have a lot of economy by trying to keep the streak. Title is going to have a lot of economy as well, but Taro might struggle a little bit against this composition, but I feel like that Warwick at the front line with the Warmogs is just way too tanky right now.
Yeah, I mean, even with the massive scaling you mentioned before from the Syndra, she's not quite there as of yet, so the plan seems to be coming together pretty well for ZETA Division. Again, do remember, it's best of 3.
Title, it looks like, actually won that last round. I feel
really?
like I actually know he lost, but I think the streak maybe number is a little bit wrong. But yeah, I mean, Title is still going to be on nearly 50 gold, pretty much there at 50 gold at the moment. So going to be incredibly strong, being able to get that extra bit of gold. And actually, Lixiao at the moment on a 5 loss streak going into Wolves.
And of course, you mentioned the flexible from before, scaling throughout the game if Lixiao can stay on top of things. Right now, of course, is on the lower end of the HP total, so we'll see what the emblem ends up coming through. No chance to reforge it this time around, but Lixiao has been keeping his cards relatively close to his chest, not slamming very many, well, I think any items at all so far. Perhaps looking to see what this team is going to need to be with the second emblem coming in.
It's pretty difficult in terms of the flexibility right now, in terms of you don't really know what emblems you are getting, so it can be a little bit difficult to try and figure out what compositions you're really wanting to play. I believe that's a Arcana emblem, which is maybe not that strong early on, but can be very strong later on when you find some of the higher cost units like the Xerath and the Tom Kench being able to get that extra power online. As you can see at the moment, maybe struggling a little bit in terms of not knowing really what items to slam, but one player that's slamming a lot of items is looking pretty good right now, LGQF. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Oh yes, YGQF. But yes, there's a lot of letters and there's a lot of gold in the bank. I think we've kind of turned the corner from where we were before, where we were kind of sitting back more passively and letting the gold trickle in. Now we're actually starting to see a real acceleration of power. That board is looking huge here from Taro, who of course is our win streaker in the lobby, is still looking incredibly dominant here coming into stage 3.
You can see the kind of difference at the moment in terms of Syndra compositions. We did see Title hovering over potentially playing the Wukong as well as the Syndra. That is a composition, a very new one where you build more Preservers on that line, and then you can also go for the Shapeshifters on the front line. You can also go for Vanguard, which is something that maybe this player is doing right here, trying to maybe go for a mixture of the Shapeshifters plus the Vanguards in the front line. But kind of, I think that's another great thing about Syndra, is just not only the carry herself, but also what you can play around her. You can play so many different compositions. But as we expect, Counterfeit, level 6 hits, and a lot of players are rolling down to see what units they can hit, and something like the Kassadin 2-star is great to start things off.
Yeah, and of course we're keeping our eye out for some of these unique situations that will crop up as a result of the 4v4 format. Teams trying to align themselves very closely on one route of play through. Tara, though, for the time being, up against the Shao, I think should have a reasonably good time. Of course, we've got those enhanced gloves coming in by the bucket load. We're committing all of our resources in to make sure we've got gloves across everyone. I think we've got a very straightforward plan from the ZETA division here. We've got Taro moving forward, at least in the early going, as their strongest player, making sure the Augments he picks keeps him online for as long as possible.
That is a big thing. The win streak is still intact as well, which is also really big. Maybe we could be seeing this sort of tempo play here really for Taro. And this is something that we don't really see a lot in terms of like ranked ladder in general. You know, the ranked ladder is the moment and the meta is very much re-rolled focus. But I feel like in this format, in this 4v4 format, if there is a player like Taro at the moment that is looking to try and win streak, trying to save as much HP as possible, you can try and play them for cost. You know, you can play the likes of Callista and other units as well.
Well, I mean, it's worth bringing to the forefront of the conversation again. When Title was not able to make it to the Global Championship, Taro was one of the players who stepped in to keep Japan at the top of the conversation and managed to make top 8 in Title's stead. So I think, he's been entrusted with Japan's hopes and dreams before. He seems to be worthy still again to shoulder that burden.
Yeah, and the double Thieves Gloves Augments as well, also just going to be helping out in just terms of the power that this front line can give as well. But I feel like maybe the AoE damage from the Syndra might be a little bit too strong as well. Not that much damage left, unfortunately, for Taro, but it feels like it could be enough to take down the Seraphine. It does look like it is as well.
Yeah, there's just so much beef on the squad right now with all those Thieves Gloves online. I mean, it's not obviously going to be optimal eternally throughout the game unless we get a very spicy final augment coming in. But, of course, we've mentioned we have got the emblems, or the spatulas rather, coming up on the carousel a little bit more often, and Title is circling, not going to be the one to take it.
Not this time around. Kaito as well taking the Tiny Titans, trying to save a little bit of HP. We're kind of seeing a bit of a difference at the moment with obviously Title loose streaking quite a lot. Actually, Title's already down to 12 gold. So definitely struggling a little bit on economy. We'll have to see in general like what Title's got in terms of composition. We can see that there's a few 2-stars on his board at the moment. Maybe he's going to be relatively close to the 3 stars because we do know he does have, as we can see there, the 2 lesser champion duplicators, and that's exactly what he's able to do to reach that 3-star Syndra. The queen at the moment is set 12.
Yeah, I mean, Title's been quietly brewing away in the corner for quite some time, but this is absolutely huge. I mean, one of the players, of course, who had the most spotlight on him coming in, getting the most mainstream successful composition to lead, I imagine, ZETA's division once Taro starts to drop off.
And this is a big thing we were mentioning just at the start, loose streaking early on is definitely a lot more less risk, I guess you can say, in terms of streaking in the early stages before the golems, and it just gives you so much more economy. You go to level 6, you roll down, thanks to 2 lesser champion duplicators as well from his augment, he's able to reach 3-star Syndra before anyone else, and this Syndra is just going to keep scaling and scaling and scaling. Every single time that she uses ability, she's just going to get even stronger. You know, I believe the cutoffs is, you know, after 15 casts you get stronger, you get the AoE damage, and then after 30 casts you create this additional rift which does even more damage. So the later this game goes, the scarier that Syndra's going to get.
It's absolutely crazy. I do have to wonder what Syndra's going to end up looking like longer term, but for the time being, she's absolutely a menace at every stage of the game. Checking back in with Shouty right now, more towards the bottom side. In fact, let's, you know, as we're coming to the end of stage 3, let's just take stock of where we are. Taro is still continuing to win streak. He might be able to bring 2 full stages onto the Japanese side. We've got Kato in 2nd place as well. Right now, if the game was to end immediately, this would be an automatic victory for Japan.
I'm glad you brought that up because there's a few win conditions that we have to keep track of in this 4v4 top format. As you mentioned, if a team gets top 1 and top 2, they are guaranteed to win, even if the other 2 members go 7th and 8th because of tiebreakers. And if they get 3 players in that top 4, they're also able to win automatically. I think at the moment, in terms of tempo, the way this game is going, ZETA Division is looking incredible, as you mentioned with Taro with the win streak. But even though Titan was lose streaking early on, getting that 3-star Syndra so early on, we're definitely going to be seeing Titan win streaking over the next few stages.
Well, Taro will not maintain the streak all the way to the tail end, which is a little bit unfortunate. But as we've mentioned, Title is moving up with a win streak of his own to move into pole position, so it's all making sense right now. Kato, what was up the top, has cashed in some of that HP being at the top of the table for his own loss streak, so it does seem to be going more or less to plan for ZETA Division so far.
Our plan definitely going incredibly well. One thing to mention here, we just saw on Tato's board, the honey monster units that he's keeping on his bench is actually to deny Wolves Esports because one of their players is actually trying to play Cogmore reroll. So this is kind of when the strategy comes in. If there is a player that is win streaking that has a lot more economy, instead of putting that extra economy into levels, let's put that extra economy into units that other players need on the other team, which is something that has been used incredibly well here. But we're seeing level 8 already for Lashao at stage 4-1, trying to potentially go for that Karma comp at the moment. There is the Karma pair, nothing else really on top of the Karma pair at the moment, being able to get cooked up here.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to put together a composition like this is really fascinating. I mean, Lashao down to 35 HP, has very little room to work with. But we've got some way towards what we're looking for. Fortunately, at least in this set, a lot of the more shallow versions of the traits are still very much splashable in the composition, even if you can't necessarily rely on them fully. You see, the Shapeshifter on the other side there will provide an incredible front line to make sure that our Syndra keeps on casting. Even if she's just a 2-star version, she still will be scaling up throughout the game. Shapeshifters actually do seem to slowly, surely be melting. The Karma item holding right now doing a pretty good job, but the Shapeshifters, I think, just a little bit too much beat.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Lashao wants to go for the Karma, wants to go for the Callista instead. I was actually selling the Karma pair in the end to get that economy, but Lashao already is in a very, very difficult spot, I feel like, in terms of the composition. We'll have to wait here. Crash Test Dummies is going to be the option, but there might be another roll down here as well. So, surprisingly enough, quite a lot more players than what we expected actually playing more tempo, going for level 8 and playing for these forecasts.
Yeah, and I think there's some amount of pressure there to try and figure out what the opposing team are going for in the lobby, that if you play too much towards the other game, potentially getting outpaced. Again, as we talked about before, even if everybody else in your team falls away, if you can get those top 2 spots, if you can outscale the opposing team, again, the guaranteed win.
Yeah, that is definitely one thing to key in, as well as Xerath is going to be the one that puts on the board. So Arcaner is in at the moment for Sharon. 3 Arcaner is in. Going to be trying to get them upgraded, ascended charms as well, which we know some of them can be incredibly powerful. You got the big, massive tower that you can use. I'm not too sure if players have seen that yet because it's very rare to get, but there was a big, massive tower that you can spawn that kind of on your front line to be a tank. So definitely something that could be a win condition for one of these players.
All right, it's multi-striker city. As we see Kez up against Taro in this round. You see, we've got the Kassadin variety with the Edge of Night there going up against some more Callista focus. Unfortunately, in this time, the Kassadin is a little bit away from where he needs to be. If he'd have got onto that Callista, but maybe he still will, with a big shield, but not quite enough.
Yeah, Kez hasn't hit his 3 stars just yet, so making sure that Kez actually is trying to reach them 3 stars is definitely going to be really important. But this is a player I was talking about. Sharon here going for the Honey Monsters, trying to go for the Cogmore. Some of the players on ZETA are holding them Honey Monster units as well, trying to stop this power spike to come from coming in here.
Chemekin and Kato, we can see Karma, of course, was on a lot of people's minds coming to this one, mostly being spec'd here for car speed, and with the Vex frontline as well, 4 Chrono in place, means we've got a lot of power from there. Particularly once Karma starts getting those kills in, potentially get the Vex healed up as long as she stays alive on the front line. Unfortunately against the multi-strikers, this is a lot of focused damage, so the Vex may not have enough beef to deny the single target burst.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for this Vex to kind of get into the front line. The good thing about 4 Chrono is you do have that opportunity to actually freeze time for 2.5 seconds, which means that the likes of Karma and Camille could do a lot more work in it. Honestly, it might be a big difference here. I think Callista's trying to do a little bit more damage, but the Karma actually the difference maker there. And the 4 Chrono, as I mentioned in the end, the big difference, being able to get that stun off on the whole board. And it is your own units, it's just the Chrono units they're going to be casting, but the likes of Camille and Karma being able to cast and attack more often is such a huge deal for that composition.
And we've got another Camille creeping out onto the carousel there as well. They're going to be scooped up by Li Xiao. We take a look again at where our teams are overall. We've got an even split now. We do no longer have ZETA Division in first place. In fact, YGQF, representing the Wolves, is now in first place with a big old win streak and the most HP in the lobby.
I'm not too sure in general if why GQF is actually going for the reroll as well. We do see quite a few 2-star units on YGQF's side playing for the shapeshifter version of Syndra. Hasn't actually hit Syndra 3 just yet, unfortunately. As we can see on the other side, we've seen the roll downs and everything trying to come in. But again, quite a lot of these players trying to get that little bit of a difference. We're seeing Nasus here as a frontline unit. One of the best frontline units is a 4 cost. You can just tank so much damage, especially with that double gargoyles.
You know, mentioned before as a very, very good and flexible frontline unit, the Xerath carry being deployed here by Saram. Spending aggressively, including picking up a damage charm, an enhanced Xerath damage charm, which means that this round at least, he will be hitting very, very hard with that Xerath. We'll see if the Nasus is enough by himself to deny an awful lot of enemy frontliners.
I think Akali is actually dashing into the backline at the moment. The Xerath is trying his best to stay alive. Maybe Xerath gets one more cast in.
Oh, there we go.
Could be a big difference, but no, it's not. Unfortunately, Sharon going to take another hit here at the moment. And even Taito as well has actually been losing a few rounds. Actually won that last round, but near the bottom at the moment. 3 out of the full Wolves Esports at the moment creeping near the bottom, so it's not looking good for them. But Shelty finally has hit that Cogmore 3.
Yeah, that's been a long time coming. We know Hunters are very, very popular indeed, and very, very powerful, but we've got the 2-cost reroll in here as well from the multi-strikers. So we've got Kassadin 1 away from the 3-star. We've already got the Kali up to 3-star as well. This will be a huge spike forward. Kez currently 3rd from bottom on 32 HP. We're in a very volatile part of the game.
Yeah, it's so incredible the way that ZETA are playing. We've got one player, ZETA, are playing. We've got Title going for the Syndra reroll. We've got Kess going for the Kassadin reroll. So really playing around the strengths of this meta right now and playing different compositions at the same time as well. But Lashao at the moment going for that flexible first augment with all these extra emblems on the board. Hasn't really maybe hit the emblems that he wanted, but it seems like this Kalista is slowly starting to scale up. There seems to be a little bit more power now on Lashal's board.
Yeah, I mean, you can see on the right-hand side there, or sorry, left-hand side, the sheer amount of different traits coming in. I think it's a really big skill test for our players to make this work overall, but, you know, again, coming into stage 5, we need to take the overall picture in. YGQF is in first place, is win streak. That, of course, is great for the Wolves side of things, but they need to get somebody else into the top 4 with them, or it's all going to be for nothing.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, if they do finish in the bottom 2 as well, they need to try and get an extra person really in the top 2 or even top 3 at this point, depending on how well Shelty and Lashao do at the bottom. But Lashao finally on a win streak, being able to get that little bit of health back. We do know that Kess is still struggling a little bit in terms of economy. Swain 3-star being hit. They were mentioning it a little bit in the pre-show, how with so many of these 2 costs being contested, they opens up the opportunity for some of these 3 costs to actually be 3-star, and not going for someone like a Syndra because it's already been played means that it opens up the opportunity for the front line to be more tanky.
Well, particularly, you know, even when you're just looking for that Syndra, you're still maybe going to find some of the uncontested 3 costs. And Swain's certainly up to the task here. Kato, though, the chrono ball we saw from before. We've got a little bit more threat coming in from the full Witchcraft enhanced Fiora on the far left-hand side. We'll see how it does up against Li Xiao. Kato, currently, in a pretty safe position in the game overall, but could really use some more wins.
Oh, the Briar into the back line, actually going to dash all the way over the other side for the moment, unfortunately. But I was a little bit worried there for a second. The Briar was in the back line on the Cassiopeia, and I was like, oh, this fight could end really, really badly. And I think we haven't really mentioned it too much just yet, but positioning in general in this set, I feel like is so important, especially with so many of these melee carries. You know, Castin, for example, at the moment, there are ways in which you can try and get like the likes of Castin or Briar to try and wrap around, especially if there's only one unit on the front line. So it's so important to make sure that these melee carriers can access the back line and get into the likes of the Syndra, the Cassiopeia, that can be that big, massive threat.
And of course, the conversation gets even more complicated when, you know, when we're concerning, you know, if you want to be trying to weaken your team against potential teammates you're playing up against as well. Just so much more to think about here as we come back into the mix. You can see for our players' faces, absolutely stoic concentration here.
Full concentration.
Yeah. That's the whole thing, you know, even for the players who've been able to, you know, play in tournaments against each other in the same country, they may not have had the chance to play literally alongside their teammates.
You know, you mentioned right at the top of when we were talking, right, some of these players have been in boot camp, some of these players have been practicing a lot for this 4v4 tournament, maybe some teams maybe not as much as well. But yeah, going back to the game at the moment, Shelty right now, 5 loss streaks sitting on 7 HP, so we could see our first elimination at the moment in this game. Has finally hit all of his 3-stars, the Cogmore, the Nunu at the front line, and also the Rumble, but it might just be too little too late.
Yeah, I was really hoping to see some big hits coming out of the Honeymancer here, but it's maybe not quite good enough if you can't get it online.
Oh,
I mean, the full Vanguard is very, very good, but yeah, YGQF is going to be an absolute monster to deal with. We don't have the items online for the Jinx quite yet. This board could get a lot stronger. Unfortunately, the main tank is not really getting a lot of the attention. You can see the Syndra is continuing to build up to be an absolute force of nature. The numbers don't lie, and it's spelling trouble here for the Wolves.
It might be okay. No, it's not.
It was not going to be okay. It was never going to be okay.
I had hope okay.
That's the first thing that he'll take from you.
Unfortunately, that is our first team kill of the tournament as well, with YGQF actually knocking out his teammate in the end. And this is such an important thing going into this 4v4 tournament. There are situations in which you can try and make your board weaker. If you're in a situation like LGQF in a situation, I honestly feel like you actually take out that 3-star Swain, knowing that Shelty is in your pool and trying to make yourself weaker so that you don't get that team kill. But unfortunately, YGQF actually going to be taken out as Shelty at the moment, so that is going to be 8th place at the moment for Wolves Esports. So now it means it's catch up for the rest of these players.
I mean, getting the player in 8th place is what a lot of these teams, you know, that's their first priority in the game, is trying to keep their member out of 8th place. Just limits you in the game in terms of what kind of routes you can take going forward. But we might be in line for some more shenanigans. You can see that there's a lot of power being put out here, as we will see. Okay, so with Kez going out, 1 member from each team out in the bottom 2, that does mean that we've got a little bit more flexibility because we've just about got a survivor from the Wolves. Terrain going down to literally a single hit point.
Yeah, I felt like in general, Kez and Shelty just kind of just hit them 3 stars a little bit too late, unfortunately. But the interesting thing now, I was talking about Li Xiao actually not maybe creating too much with this augment, with this flexible augment, getting all these emblems. But it seems like he's been able to find this board that's now got him on a win streak, which is, in my opinion, such a strong asset to have in the team. A player this early on into a set, we have to remember, this set has only been out for just over a week. I believe it's 8 days, I believe it's been out. And already a player like Li Xiao can pick up an augment like Flexible, get random emblems every single time and still create a composition that could be looked to try and win streak.
Yeah, opportunity knocking and very much being taken advantage of. We have got the 3-star Galio coming in on our picture-in-picture there as you see a little bit more power coming across the wall, but Lixiao looking very good. Wolves could be up for execution though. They're the only player on the single HP. We've got against an opponent who's very, very low. The Karma's forward on the other side. Karma versus Karma. Preserver and Chrono being put together. You see the Nasus is managing to hold on for a decent amount of time. The Chrono at least does kick in time to keep things alive. The Nasus is online, but the Fiora sneaking through to the back, and without the Fiora there, you've got no hope whatsoever.
Yeah, that's going to be another member of Wolves being take out here. Really nice kill there for Kaito and ZETA Division. And we're seeing in general the 3-star Swain is doing so much on this front line, but it doesn't seem to be enough for now. Another member is going to be taken pretty low on health there as Title loses another one. So we could be seeing Title again being knocked out.
Wow.
This is so close. We're seeing Wolves, ZETA. Like, anything is possible in this game, and it's really going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, certainly Title getting knocked out in bottom 4 with a 3-star Syndra Ball was not on my bingo card, but this game has been pretty wild from the very beginning of the tournament. Do you remember, gentle friends, this is best of 3, but as Stuart mentioned before, even from the very beginning of the tournament, getting that first win in, or first series win in, improves your tournament situation drastically.
And we see Title's kind of composition coming online now, that 3-star Galio. I think in general, just not having really any attack speed on this Syndra could be the downfall here for Title. It's going to try and do enough damage to take down this Swain. We do have the crowd control as well from the Nami going into the backline. But you're seeing how the attack speed Syndra on the other side, even though it is only a 2-star, is racking up so many abilities time after time, but it's the 3-star that comes in. I believe that was a ghost fight as well, but it's so close for Title there, and he nearly got knocked out.
I think we're seeing a little bit of what we kind of were discussing coming into the tournament, which is that, you know, I feel like there's a lot of weight being put on Title to be the big performer, but as you said, the items aren't really what they need to be to get the most out of this competition. So I think maybe we'll see that adjust over the course of competition and saying, you know, while we've got players who can perform at the very top level, we still got to take into account of the overall circumstances of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the overall format as well, we definitely have to take into account as well. I think it's very difficult in this format to just have like 1 or 2 star players. It really is a team game. You really have to come together as a team in terms of communication, in terms of making sure that you can deny some of these compositions of coming online. As we get into stage 6, we're going to be seeing a lot of these charms now become a lot more powerful.
Oh yeah, I mean, we even saw the Fairy Charm creep in there to the flexible board, so more shallow traits to be picked up. We've now got the split screen to see if we can put a little bit more power in the Karma board on the right-hand side. We've now got a fully itemized Fiora. On the left-hand side, we're building towards what could eventually become a triple carry, but isn't quite there yet.
Not just there, unfortunately, maybe trying to find another item in the end. Title just kind of waiting to see who his opponent is. Oh no, it looks like it might be a ZETA knockout here. Both Kaito and Title coming together.
Oh boy, and of course they're both on a single life. You're intimating there. Chrono kicks in. We did get a little bit more damage. The Jewel Gauntlet joining in for a 3rd item on the Karma. And I think at this point, you know, all of the Japanese players are happy when they see Title succeeding, and he will at least get through to the top 4.
Through to the top 4, but at what cost? I feel like Counterfeit at the cost of knocking out his teammate. So at the moment, we have Wolf Esports getting 8th place and 6th place, which means at the moment they're currently on 4 points. And then we have ZETA at the moment getting knocked out at 7th and 5th place. So going to be on a little bit of extra points at the moment. But the way that this is looking, Lixiao at the moment on that 10 win streak, both Wolves players at the moment are definitely looking incredibly strong. And I think it's really up to Lixiao at the moment. I mean, look at all the traits on that left-hand side. Look at this board that Lixiao's been cooking up this whole time as well. It's been incredible work by Lixiao so far.
Oh boy, yeah, I mean, Lixiao's has been on an absolute tear throughout this game. You can see on the other side though, Taro continues to keep nice and healthy towards the top of the board, 47 HP, YGQF on 39, Title still barely holding on. I think exactly as you said, it may be a short earned victory.
And the big thing here, you can see that Taro actually doing incredibly well here, actually putting his 2-star Kalista on the bench, knowing that he was going to face Title. So he wants to try and keep Title alive. He knows that he's on enough HP, and both the Wolves players also going low on health. So this all comes down to who's going to go up against who. Is there a way in which I can make my board weaker, which is exactly what Taro was able to do there. Make his board weaker, allow Title to stay alive, and keep Zeta's dreams alive in game number 1.
And I just love this extra layer of decision making. As you were saying before, for the ZETA division, make a decision to keep Title in the game. How much more, kind of axis of communication and decision making there is here. Because, if you can sacrifice your round to be able to keep your teammate alive, how much is it going to cost you in terms of streak and HP? Leshao, though, looking very good as Title goes up again. It's the 3-star Galio versus the 3-star Swain, and I know which one I prefer to have.
Which one do you prefer to have?
The Swain.
Okay, the Swain. I mean, I would say Syndra, but maybe not with these items.
That wasn't an option, Stuart.
Maybe not with no attack speed, but I mean, Title at the moment trying to keep ZETA Division's dreams alive in this first game. But that frontline tankiness is just way too powerful, and even with a 2-star Syndra is going to knock out Title in 4th place. So 3 players from ZETA Division out of this game right now.
Yeah, that's pretty devastating. We will wait for some confirmation, but certainly for Taro going to need to try and shoot for the first place with a shout on a 12-round win streak. It's looking very likely we're going to be seeing Wolves come in here strong, take the first 2 spots and cement themselves a very firm Game 1 victory.
Incredible performance by Wolves Esports. I mean, the early game maybe looked a little bit rough. I mean, there was the moments that you feel like ZETA Division looked very, very strong with the likes of the Syndra 3 coming in online so quickly. But unfortunately, maybe not going to be enough. But we see here one of the big charms in this set being able to spawn a dragon. This is kind of a frontline tank, but also has a little bit of damage. So you actually want to put it on the second row. It's a 2-hex, gives you that extra unit. I'm not too sure if it's going to be enough, though, for Taro to try and face off against some of these incredible boards that Wolves Esports have been cooking up.
I know it's one of those charms that people kind of bemoan for being, incredibly powerful, but I think at this point for Taro, it is just a last-gasp desperation move to stay alive for a little bit longer. I mean, Leshao is the lower of the 2 Wolves members in terms of HP right now on a massive win streak as they'll go up and see how they do up against each other. I mean, at this point, I imagine they're just hoping for the round to be as close as possible in case Taro is able to hold on.
No, I totally agree. I think you just want to make it as close as possible, and I think that's exactly that. Look at that. 1 unit loss, or 2 unit loss, sorry, I didn't see that zillion at the bottom, but only a 2 unit loss for Wolves Esports in that situation, as well as Taro actually wins the ghost fight in the end. So at the moment, it seems like Taro is keeping himself alive, but as you mentioned, I feel like it's extremely difficult for Wolves Esports now to kind of throw this away with both of their top 2 players looking really, really powerful.
I mean, Leshao certainly, I don't imagine he's going to be losing for the rest of this game. 13 rounds in a row is a pretty definitive statement, but yeah, at least with 1 life remaining between Taro and YGQF, it still could go a little bit differently, even if Leshao himself can't be unseated.
We're going to be seeing the next fight here as well. It's going to be Leshao up against Taro. This is such a big fight in this first round. Can Leshao, who's been cooking up this board with so many emblems, be able to get through, as a Fiora at the moment is jumping straight into the back line, is going to die to the Kalista, and his Kalista is jumping around on the side of Leshao at the moment, doing so much work, but maybe, just maybe, Taro has a little bit of a chance here and broke through that front line pretty damn quickly, and this double Rage Blade Kalista is doing a lot of work, and actually, Taro keeps himself alive and stops the lose streak of Leshao.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that one at all. It leaves all 3 members left with a single life coming in to stage 7. We'll get a little bit more oomph behind these boards, but I wasn't expecting this first game, the opening of the entire tournament, to be quite this tense.
I mean, it's tense and it's also close, but I think it just shows the power of these 2 teams as well. I think both these teams coming into this, maybe not on everyone's radar in terms of these super teams that have been coming together, in terms of the rankings that we've been getting in this tournament, but it just shows that it's so incredibly close right now. But Taro being able to stop the win streak there of Leshao and get that victory means that he's actually the player now on the highest HP. Yes, they're all single digits. It's all going to come down to this next round.
Oh boy. All right, let's see if we can see something surprising. Taro again, the player who so many hopes and dreams were pinned on in the championship before when Titan was not here, left alone against two wolves, a pack of wolves, you might say, baying at the door. But I was fully prepared to just see Taro bow out there, especially after he bought the dragon and said, you know, I'm spending all my gold just to stay alive. That's not a move which tends to indicate you're in it for the long term.
It's like a kind of escape mechanism in the end for Taro as well, making sure that he can keep himself alive, but he has to go one further. He has to go one more to try and give ZETA Division a chance.
All right, keep our eye on Taro up against YGQF on the left-hand side of the screen. Of course, the Kalista is doing absolute work. You can see the front line is holding very well in front of her, and it looks like she's not going to take too much aggro at all. She's chewing through the units one by one. I think Taro might have it here, go up against the Swain. We'll be able to tear through, but now the shape is coming through. Taro's going to drop. On the other side, the Ghost Board does not manage to do anything at all. Both Wolves survive the top two, and we know what that means.
That means that Wolves Esports is going to close out game number 1 here in our first series of the Esports World Cup presented Teamfight Tactics. Incredible work in general by LeShao, being able to just pilot this board with so many emblems, and even the pivot here as well by YGQF, sorry, I have to try and remember that name.
It's a tough name.
Yeah, I have to try and remember the wordings and which order they're in. But YGQF doing such incredible work of not actually focusing on that 3-star Syndra, because we know that Title was focusing on it, and instead focusing on that front line, keeping that front line alive, because you have so much attack speed on this Syndra. But now with that 3-star Syndra online, was able to win out in the end against Taro, and it doesn't matter about the result of this one. We know that Wolves Esports are going to be able to finish off this first game.
Yeah, very much just a victory lap here to cement their position on top. It was a, I think, real hold your breath moment for a while there, as YGQF will be ultimately our winner. But the important part is Wolves Esports take the top 2 spots, and I think very much get the upset here in game 1.
Yeah, incredible. I think that LeShao definitely stepped up. I think YGQF also stepped up as well. We know this player has been around for quite some time, was actually competing in set 7 in Dragonlands as well, being able to get top 20 there in the end. But getting that victory and get that momentum swing this early on in the tournament is going to be huge. Like I said, I love the adaptation this game by Wolves Esports. Not maybe going towards the meta so much, and more playing around what everyone else is going and what win conditions they have as a team.
Well, it was the same kind of idea as the Hero was, before, just trying to find a route for the game that's going to be a lot less contested than it would have been before. But gentle friends, of course, we do need to get ourselves ready for game number 2, which is only our first series today, as we see the evidence of the victory being collected there. So, as we will just show you guys a few moments from the previous game, of course, we head to break. The Dud Solomon Al Habib Showdown will continue after the break. Find a route for the game that's going to be a lot less contested than it would have been before. But gentle friends, of course, we do need to get ourselves ready for game number 2, which is only our first series today, as we see the evidence of the victory being collected there. So, as we will just show you guys a few moments from the previous game, of course, we head to break. The Dud Solomon Al Habib Showdown will continue after the break. Oh, my apologies. It looks like we'll be spending a little bit more time just reviewing this one. So as we look forward to game number 2 then, we can take our time to digest a little bit what we got out of the first game.
Yeah, I think the big surprises for me was we didn't see maybe as much reroll as what we thought. We actually saw a lot more karma, which we know is going to be an incredible way in which to get them 4-cost units online. It is by far the strongest 4-cost composition at the moment in this meta. You know, being able to get the Chrono online, being able to get that 5-cost Camille in the front line as a carry, which is so important, and getting that extra, getting them extra little damage and extra front line as well. We saw a lot of karma. We saw a little bit of Nami this game as well. We did see a few 3-star Syndra, but as I mentioned, I think for Title, he got that 3-star Syndra so early, but I feel like the itemization unfortunately wasn't there. You do have the Spirit Shogun, which is very powerful, but a lot of players recently have been prioritizing more attack speed so you can get more abilities off on the Syndra.
No, I'm with you there, and I think it was also playing the Lost Streak style meant that he wasn't being able to get as many stacks in the early game to really get that Syndra rolling and let you take over the rounds to kind of stack as freely as you want to. So I think there's a lot to think about here, particularly for ZETA Division coming in, because it felt like they had a very distinct game plan for game number 1, but ultimately it not working out in such spectacular fashion. You know, even with Taro almost saving things, I think it does need to change.
No, yeah, something needs to change. Something needs to change in game number 2 for ZETA Division, but Wolves Esports looking really, really strong coming into this first game.
So apologies for form. We will, in fact, have the break now. So again, the Dot Solomon Al Habib showdown will continue after break, and game 2 coming up.
لحظات البداية عاشت معنا. كنا نحسبها وقت للتسلية بس. نحسبها بس ذكريات.
عبود أعطي أختك اليد يا ولد.
ابتكرنا فيها ابتكارات، وإذا بغينا قلبناها خرافات. كنا نحسبها بس لمة وصحبة وسهرات.
انتبه نوب ترى نوب.
لكن كنا نشوف عالم ما حد يشوفه.
زيتا يشغل وقته بشيء يفيده.
الله عليك على اليد سود.
عالم كبر وعاش فينا. عالم الحماس فيه يوصلك كل مرة لحلم أصعب، بس ما يصعب عليك. بارد معك وين ما تروح.
Welcome back everyone to the Esports World Cup presenting Teamfight Tactics. My name is Kind of It here with Stuart once again. We are heading into a most unexpected game 2. ZETA Division coming in definitely as the favorite from our analyst desk up against Wolves Esports, losing the first game to the Wolves in a very close finish.
Yeah, it really went down, I feel like, to the wire in the end. I think it was really, really huge for Wolves Esports to be able to come up victors in this first game in terms of momentum, in terms of trying to kind of pull out their win in the end. I think for likes of ZETA Division, it's really going to go down to trying to recoup, trying to go back to kind of the drawing board, kind of figure out what went wrong in that first game. Because I feel like not a lot of stuff really went wrong for ZETA. I feel like in the end, you know, we talk about the early game. I feel like ZETA Division definitely had an advantage in the early game. They had one win streak player, they had the lose streak player in title in the end, wasn't able to keep that lose streak, unfortunately, near the end. But I think like the huge the huge step up here by Lashao on Wolves Esports, you know, really being the main carry for this team. I think that's the big thing, because we have to remember this is a player that played in that set 11 in Ingborn Fables World Championship, the Tactician's Crown, got top 4 there as well, actually nearly won the championship over there. So this is a player that in recent times has been performing incredibly well, and even LGQF on the other side as well, also picking up an incredible victory with 2 boards that we didn't see a reroll. I don't think we really mentioned that yet, but our top 2 players in that last game were not playing reroll.
No, I think that's the whole thing as well, isn't it? You're trying to keep yourself safe from there. And I'm sorry, I'm just taking a moment to recognize here, particularly from the Japanese side of things, the looks of the players' faces. You know, to come into an event like this, you know, it's such a huge spectacle you're seeing here. To be sitting down, to be knowing that the world is watching you here.
Yeah.
To know that you're now fighting an uphill battle. I mean, you know, going into the next game, you know, the pressure is absolutely not on the Wolves. They can even play more risky, knowing that they've got the game in hand. That, you know, they can go to the game if they need. But, you know, for the ZETA division, they cannot make any more mistakes going forwards.
No, I think the big thing is that I think it's a difficult one, because yes, you do have that third game to kind of fall back on, but I feel like TFT in general is a game of fine margins, and I feel like in general, if Wolves Esports does lose this next game, and then it does go into game 3, I feel like anything can happen. So if Wolves Esports does have the opportunity, they need to try and make it count here to make sure that they can try and come out on top and win the first series of today 2-0.
Well, it doesn't look like our teams are happy to go for... well, we're getting a lot of a woos is what I'm hearing here, Stuart. It sounds like the Wolves are feeling pretty good, but we're going for a very low variance portal. We've had a golden prelude. Why not have a golden finale to go with it?
Honestly, the theme of Little Legends by Wolves Esports, I think, is top-notch. They all have the same little legends. The synergy is on point. The gameplay is on point as well, that they're able to win the first one. So yeah, the Wolves are out as a pack right now and doing incredible work in this first game of the series. But now we're going into the second game, and it's really about what we can kind of see happen here. As I mentioned, I think the first game was very surprising to see so many players play for the tempo, play towards the level 8 compositions, and we'll have to see how that differs in this second game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you made a really good point with the way that ZETA played out the previous game, in that they did basically win the bottom 4. They got both, you know, each team got 2 players in the bottom 4, but both of the ZETA position players were, you know, better, you know, 7th rather than 8th, you know, 5th rather than 6th. So they were set up for success in the top 4. They just couldn't capitalize on that early success.
Yeah, and I think this is such a big thing as well, is that even though your early game could look really well by like Title, for example, I feel like in a 4v4 format, it's all about the max cap. It's all about reaching the maximum cap that you can get. Because as we know, if a team gets top 2, then it doesn't matter where the other 2 position, they are always going to get that victory. So I think that's a big thing for Wolves Esports that they were able to do. You know, Lashao playing the flexible composition with so many emblems, and then YGQF being able to play the kind of Swain reroll, quote unquote, in the end. It was kind of like more tempo, but then was playing a little bit more reroll later on down the line once Title eventually died.
All right, so we settle in here for game number 2 of our first of our 4 series here today. We see Kato doing a little bit of tech there, trying to get the Syndra a little bit of damage, get that early cast through. We can certainly see that Kato has got a good item setup to go for the Syndra line, so wants to make the most of it.
Does have a Castin on the bench as well, though, so I think that when these players drop some of these units, like the Castin and the Syndra, it's really about that communication that we know is going to be so important in 4 versus 4. Like, hey, are you on a better Syndra line? Am I on a better Syndra line? What are our items looking like? What are our units looking like as well? We see some of the augment choices here. You know, you got things like Escort Quest, if you want to try and go for a win streak, can be really, really huge. Slamming can really help you in terms of the tempo as well. And it is going to be slamming.
And we saw slamming be played in the previous game as well. I think it does make sense, particularly if you've got good early items and you say, okay, I'm quite happy to make them immediately.
Title, again, looks like going for the Syndra again. It's going to be leveling as well to try and get that little bit of a win streak. This time Title does have the Rage Blade, so it does have that little bit of extra attack speed, which is, as I mentioned, so huge for Syndra to get as many casts off as possible. As we see on the other side here for Shelty, doesn't have the best of backlines at the moment with just that Zoe 1-star, but can do a lot of single target damage to help that front line stay alive.
But like as well, for Title managing to find a very, very early Wukong to be able to prop up that front line. Again, it looks like Title may still be on the more loss-streaking side of things, but having a much more solid board to make sure that if the losses do come, they're not going to be hitting him too hard.
I think with him actually leveling here, I think he is trying to win streak. It doesn't look like he is, unfortunately. I still feel like if he wanted to lose streak, he probably didn't need to level itself. He actually could have probably made economy in the end.
True.
With not leveling and trying to go for something else instead. But unfortunately for Title, as leveled, is going to do that. Wandering Trainer actually for Kess in the end. And these are two emblems or two aspects that you can build into. That's going to be very important because you can go for the vertical portal, but you can also go for the vertical witchcraft as well. You know, vertical portal can be very powerful. We know that Rise in general is maybe not as strong of a carry, but you can get, as they call it, the Giga Portal when you reach 10 portal. So I mean, Kess has plenty of opportunities here to go down many different lines here.
Oh, speaking of lines, we do see a pretty bold choice being taken by Serene there from the Wolves side of things. Completely open forting as of that previous round. This was something we didn't really get to see in the previous game, but of course, with streaks being as important as they are, getting the chance to cut out someone else, ideally the opposing other team's lost streaker, can be hugely powerful.
There's another thing as well. We see Taro actually having a Syndra 2 already with Spear of Shojin. So this is going to be interesting to see how this game turns out, because we know Title has kept the Syndra on the board as well with Dan Ginsu's Rage Blade. We know that we do have a 2-star Syndra here and a 2-star Neela as well. So definitely a lot of power here for Taro. And I feel like in Taro's spot, you can actually potentially even go for Tempo. Is playing Stars are Born. We have to remember. With that augment. So being able to get the 2-star Syndra online already, that 2-star Blitzcrank on the front line, could be a way in which Title is loose streaking, so we can say, hey, Title, you can go for the Syndra reroll, but for now, I want to keep the Syndra to try and keep that win streak going.
Yeah, and this is one thing I was kind of curious to see if we would see in this game is, you know, we talked about contesting and holding each other's units. If your own teammate is holding the units you are looking for, there's one very straightforward thing they can do, which is release them when they want to release them back into the pool by making the sell on the 2 stars and then allowing your, the teammate to be able to re-roll and find the units while still keeping them out of the opposing team's hands.
I think it's about the communication of probably it's going to be like ZETA Division communicating like, hey, okay, wait for your roll down, wait until I sell the Syndra, and then start your roll down. You know, that sort of communication, I think, is going to be key as we go into our first carousel.
All right, as we come to that first carousel, we just want to check in on the overall game. And fortunately, for the spirit of competition, we do see both a Wolves and a ZETA player up in the top, undefeated so far. But so far, it's looking pretty good for the Wolves. Shelty and Lashao managed to keep themselves up in the HP settings. Of course, we saw towards the tail end of the game, just having a lot of HP towards the tail end is incredibly valuable.
No, 100%. And we can see at the moment, Sharon at the moment sitting down on 82 HP on a lost streak. But we see Sharon's board in the bottom right-hand corner. Only a 1-star Ash at the moment. Has got the lesser champion duplicators in there as well. So Sharon really trying to make sure that he secures this lost streak. And I think with the 2 other players on ZETA Division on the other side, also near the bottom of the rankings, that security of being able to get that lost streak in the early game, especially when you have that double lesser champion duplicators, just means you have so much more gold to roll down when you hit level 6 to try and hit these 2-cost 3 stars.
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit coming into this game about whether or not we'd see Wolves playing a little bit more risky because they've got the game's grace to work with here. I wonder if the same might actually be true from ZETA's Division side of things, that they're going to be a little bit more desperate in this game and more willing to try and play close to the edge, knowing that they have to get the win here, no matter what.
And again, it comes down to trying to get the biggest caps possible, trying to get these lost streaks, trying to get as much gold as possible, or maybe even trying to get win streaks at the moment, which is exactly what Kess is able to do here. This is such a big win here for Kess and for ZETA Division to keep that win streak. Is now going to be the only player left in the lobby at the moment on a win streak. And we'll have to see how the bottom of the standings shaped up as well, as it was Sharon against Kaito. And the big thing there, Sharon actually losing against Kaito, so that means that Kaito doesn't keep his lost streak, but Sharon at the bottom at the moment on a 4 lost streak.
Yeah, that's a ton extra gold being taken out of pocket. Kez up at the top of the win streak. We'll see if he can hold on to that. Of course, last time around, Kez finishing in 7th place, but this time getting the strong start. I think we're getting to see a little bit of the illustration of why game by game, players' roles on the team are going to change dramatically.
I think this is a big thing, right? I don't think one role for one team is definitely certain. If there is a way in which that is possible, you know, you might have one player looking to be the main carry, then you have one person that's loose streaking, trying to look at the other board, seeing what things are being cooked up across the board. But in general, it is going to change depending on how strong your early game is. For example, someone like Kez this game, you know, doing incredible work with keeping the string streak. So at the moment, he is the one that is going to be playing tempo, you know, slamming items like Adaptive Helm, which maybe is not the best option for tiers. You know, you want like the blue buff and the Spirit Shogun, but knowing that you're on a win streak, knowing that you can keep that 100 streak, keep that gold in the back pocket is going to be so huge.
I mean, that was the idea we were talking about before. You kind of have a sort of two-phase approach to your strategy here. You have the early win streak, exactly say slamming items, preparing the ground, the road for your eventual ace to come through and take the first place.
No, definitely, and we've seen that in the previous game as well, you know, in terms of being able to go to level 8 and level 9 could be the main cap for these players, and maybe reroll in general might not be as strong as what we thought counterfeit. You know, we've seen at the moment, for those who've been playing the new set back at home, everyone knows how strong these 2-cost rerolls at the moment. But we have to remember, this is a completely different format, and we have to look at these players trying to reach the maximum cap possible. But Sharon here at the moment on so much gold, has 55 gold already, has a little bit of standing gold on the bench as well, and it's going to be maybe waiting things out here, trying to see what could be a possibility here in terms of trying to potentially go to level 6 and try and roll down. But we're seeing Kess here, 6 portal online already. Could we be seeing a Giga Portal?
I was going to say, I'm trying to remember what you calling that one before.
That's not me saying it, by the way. That's the actual term of what it is. It's actually called a Giga Portal. You get a 1,500 shield, and you get a Giga Portal. You thought, what? Do you think that was me saying that, or?
Admittedly, I thought you said a giggle portal the first time you said it. I was like, all right, it's nothing funny about this game, Stuart. Oh, terrible.
Is it us Brits again? Us Brits getting confused with each other, the different accents across Britain?
You're having a giggle, you absolutely are. But Kez has been having a quite a short soul through the early going. You can see the portal vertical you were calling out before as being very powerful, is getting the job done. A little side line into the Witchcraft. You know, even at we talked about it before, the Witchcraft in particular, even at low numbers, is still, you know, giving you meaningful bonus to the team.
No, I feel like that kind of debuff that the Witchcraft gets are also really, really huge, you know, being able to get them to lose HP. But I think Portal, in my opinion, is definitely the bigger cap if you can try and reach that later game as well, as we head into Silver Augments to start things off as well. But this is where the roll down really becomes big here for some of these players. Level 6 is going to be hitting. Sharon on the left-hand side is going to be rolling down to try and hit some units. But how far is Sharon going to roll here? Trying to see what units is going to be picked up. There's a Syndra being picked up. He still has the 2-star Ashe on the bench as well, so still keeping his options open and potentially looking for multi-striker as well.
Yeah, we've got to make use of those lesser champion duplicators somehow. I mean, I suppose at this point, you know, with a loss streak in place, a 6-round loss streak, and as you mentioned before, a good amount of gold in bank, has got a little bit of time as the Nami too gets found here. That's a pretty surprising development there at level 6.
Too?
Your eyes do not deceive you, but by all rights, they should be.
Is that even like...
Is that even allowed? No, a 5% chance, isn't it?
I think someone needs to check his PC. I mean, that's for sure. I mean...
Well, I mean, on the stage, someone might have slipped extra Namis underneath one of these seats, and the players may just be like, oh, there we go, I'll use that one.
Them. I mean, at this point, I feel like Sharon might just use this Nami as potentially like a carry and maybe play towards more tempo. Has rolled a lot of gold though at level 6, so maybe it's a little bit difficult, but the Nami, more of a utility mage, I feel like, you know, isn't really there on the damage side. You can build her as more of a carry, but players like to build the items like Umbrella and Spirit Shogun and things like that as well. But look at this for title, Pandora's bench, and we could be seeing the Wukong Jinx, which is something in the pre-show which the analyst was slowly talking about. I think Wukong at the moment is definitely being a high priority in this meta as of recently. Some people play Wukong with the Syndra, some people play Wukong with the Jinx. Obviously with Wukong, he doesn't have any traits. He just has his own trait which makes him stronger, but he's such a strong frontline tank that if you put the goggles on him, he can survive so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, you know, certainly the Pandora's Bench, one of the most popular augments at the moment because of how popular reroll is overall, but I'm definitely liking this more for Title, though he's, again, still towards the bottom end. And of course, you know, Title will be looking out here for Serena, who will be going up against in this round. Both of them are loss streaking right now. I think with Title's boards starting to gather strength, maybe he'll be able to punch through. Front lines will not be quite good enough as of yet, though. And we can see the extra dose of crowd control, even unitemized, that Nami is such a terror to deal with when you've got a clumped backline especially.
And surprisingly, Title there, it seems like didn't pick up the charm where he gets a gold and the opponent gets a gold. I mean, maybe just don't want to give any gold over to Wolves Esports at the moment, but hey.
Not one piece.
Maybe gold is not what they need at the moment, because when we're looking at the standings, all three Wolves players, or three of the four Wolves players, I should say, sitting in the top 4 at the moment, which is such an incredible work for them at the moment. The big win streakers are being Kess and LGQF at the moment. We know Kess is the player at the moment that does have the Wandering Trainer. It's potentially going for the portal setup in the end.
Yeah, the double Tiny Titans being picked up by the Sharon Shelty to put them into that top spot is really interesting. I think this is the development of what we saw before. That, you know, if you've got a high health player, in this case maybe 2 high health players for the 10 end, they can bleed out slowly and take that second place, ideally behind your first place.
And what we're seeing interesting here for Title as well, he's keeping 6 Syndras on the bench. Ooh. Not just 1, not just 2, 6. That is a lot of Syndras being put on the bench. I mean, one more? Why not, I guess? I mean, just pick up another one. But Title is really being... We were talking about kind of strategies coming into this, right? We thought Title might have been the main carry for the team. Sure. But Title in this game is the one who is sacrificing his own game to try and benefit his whole team. He's playing Pandora's bench. He's trying to get as many 2 costs as possible and take all of these 2 costs out of the pool, like the Syndra, for example.
And we didn't expect to see anything quite that wild this early on to the competition, but I suppose in this case, the teams that they've had the time to prepare for this one, I think we will start to see across the tournament teams actually kind of, you know, trying to lean more into the specific 4v4 strategies that other teams may not even think of.
No, I think that's the thing as well. I mean, we're even seeing here for Kessel on the bench as well, also keeping a Syndra. We do know that the pools have gotten a little bit bigger, you know, being able to get more 2 costs in the pool. But when you have someone keeping 6 Syndras on the bench, I mean, that's fire right there. Like, that is just pure energy and anger, I feel like, coming out of Titles. Like, hey, you won game 1, you're top of the pack at the moment in game number 1, but this game, I'm taking as many things away from you as possible. And you can see for Sharon on the other side, playing a Syndra reroll, only has 3 Syndras right now. It does obviously have the Nami too, but only 3 Syndras is definitely behind the pile.
I mean, for the first place I kind of came across this kind of style, I would call the French style of playing 4v4, where you're just, you know, targeting out a specific player and trying to make their game as miserable as is humanly possible. Just because if you can do that, you can pretty much guarantee your team's not going 8th.
No, exactly that. I think that's the thing. But I mean, Title does need to be careful himself, right? Because I think the big thing is like Title and Sharon are near the bottom at the moment, and Title and both these players are kind of the sacrificial ones, I guess you can say, in this lobby in terms of HP as well. The difficult thing at the moment by ZETA division, sorry, is that Taro and Kaito are also sitting in the bottom 4. So they only really have Kess at the moment that's sitting right at the top. Did unfortunately lose that win streak in the end. And actually, interesting enough, the scoreboard
pretty much everybody lost their win streak.
I mean, everyone lost their win streak, so all the bottom players won and all the top players lost. So
it sounds like it's time for turning a tide then in this game. We saw it before, you know, at least the attempt to come in now to stage 4. You know, with the streaks no longer intact, certainly our players from the top are, you know, more incentivized to cash in their HP, turn that into gold, turn that into late game potential.
Yeah, YGQF as well, also 1 away from Cogmore 3-star. Maybe not as contested as a 2-star, 2-cost 3-star, but is going to be hitting it. Look at that picture-in-picture.
The bees! The bees!
Cogmore 3 being hit.
I get it, yeah.
Maybe not as powerful as Syndra, but when so many Syndras are out of the pool with Title holding so many, that flexibility of being able to play other 2-cost reroll compositions is definitely extremely powerful.
So our minds entirely consumed with coming up with bee puns at the moment, so you'll have to forgive me.
We love the bees.
We do love the bees, Because it's worth noting, of course, on the big win streak from before with the portal, as you mentioned, you know, the big changing of the guard here coming into stage 4 did take the L in the previous round, knocking down a massive win streak from before, but it's still a still a major threat to the rest of the lobby, even if the win streak didn't remain intact.
Going to be going for gold augments to end things off for this game. You see if there's anything interesting being come up. Keepers could be an option to get that little bit of extra shielding in the end. Again, Syndra's still trying to be rolled down here. Still a few Syndras away. We'll have to see if that is going to be picked up here as well, because we're a few away from Mordekaiser and we're a few away from Syndra.
I'm really interested to see what Zerain can do in this one. Again, a player who finished towards the bottom half in the first game, but it's also worth considering as well, you know, when we've got players of the caliber of Zhao and Title in the game, they can contribute to their teammates. It's absolutely allowed for them to spend at least some of their time in making sure their teammate is doing the best they can. I mean, it was being joked about on the desk, playing Syndra, is straightforward enough to give you enough brain space to do that, but I think that's legitimately true.
No, I mean, there's so many different ways in which you can play Syndra. I mean, like Kaito, you can see on the other side playing more of a tempo Syndra. I think in terms of being able to get that extra possibility of getting the Syndra online is so, like, even 2-star Syndra, in my opinion, can carry you throughout the whole of stage 3 until you go potentially into stage 4. And you can even see here, stage 4, 2-star Syndra, okay, does have the Karma 2-star there as well, but just being that stable force and a stable carry early on is really, really big.
Well, ultimately, she's an encounter. She's still doing magic with this shred. You mentioned that she's spreading her damage around. As she scales up. Even if she's not a 3-star, she doesn't have to kill everybody. If you've got the Karma there to kind of complement that damage, you can really make up the difference and still have a very powerful backline.
And it kind of becomes that double AoE damage as well, right? Because you have the Karma doing AoE damage. Obviously, Syndra, after a few casts, can also do AoE damage as well. Title at the moment sitting near the bottom, actually at the bottom at the moment, with 3 ZETA Division players all sitting at the bottom. With Pandora's Bench, trying to hit that Wukong 3-star is 1 away.
Yeah, and that'll be a massive step up in terms of power. You can see that the Jinx is already going to have a lot of punch. She's got the 4 Hunter in place, so she can start getting those kills in. Gets herself really online. You can see, especially with the Ginsu stacks up. I think, having the 3-star Wukong there means this board is going to be very hard to beat, with the Karma on the other side, complemented by, you see the Syndra we mentioned from before. Right now is still good enough to take Title down.
A little bit of team damage there as well, unfortunately, for multiple sides of the boards, but at the moment, Wolves Esports are in prime position right now to try and finish off this game.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves, they've got the win streak, they've got the loss streak, they've got the, they've got all of their players in the top 5. It's seeming like it's coming together really well for the Wolves Esports to potentially go 2-0 in the series and go into the upper bracket.
I think that's a big thing as well, is that trying to get this extra units online. You can see Taro's board here on the bottom left as well, trying to go for the Eldritch, actually picking up the Eldritch augment as well in the end, which is the one that gives
the school mascot.
Yeah, school mascot.
Everyone's favorite augment.
Hey, you can give your little buddy some items and give some extra power. Why not? But I mean, I think they need a little bit more power, unfortunately, at the moment. As you can see, the board's trying to cook things up here as well. But Fairy, another Fairy emblem.
Double Fairy emblem, yeah.
6 Fairy at the moment, maybe trying to go for even more afterwards as well. Now up to 7 Fairy. Could this be a possibility here that we can see our first composition of being completely vertical? We have 3 Fairy emblems.
All right, I mean, I'm absolutely here for it. But you said like, the trainers open up a lot of doors to play, so not just Waddle but Fairy as well, which means we're going to have the Queen's Guard in play for an extra beef on the front line. We can see that's on Rakan on the sideline at the moment. Going to make him incredibly hard to put down, getting healed by that backline damage. I think this is going to be a closer round than it looks like, but not quite there as of yet.
Yeah, putting the Fairy emblem and Fairy spat on the Jinx is definitely an interesting call to get the extra item, the Fairy item onto Jinx, so it means the Jinx might not maybe have as much power as some of the other items. But I think the big thing trying to go for, oh there we go, and Taito actually hits the 3-star Jinx.
That's how we do it.
I think that when you reach that 9 Fairy, once them items become Radiant, that's really where the power comes in from this trait with this vertical composition.
We'll have to see if we can get there, though. As you said, ZETA Division are in a pretty big trouble. We can see them there at the bottom of the screen. Fierce looks of concentration on their face. Especially, we can talk a little bit as we come to the PvE round here. We'll see if Zerain is able to keep hold of that win streak, though noticeably as well on the Shao with a loss streak. Title down at the bottom of 19. Gosh, I didn't even realize quite how low he had gotten.
Yeah.
The 3-star Jinx is in place. The 3-star Wukong is not there yet. He's out of money If he loses this round, it will be a disaster for ZETA Division.
Yeah, I think, as I said, the big thing this game is that Title was really with the sacrificial one in this game, trying to contest all the Syndras, all the other rerolls, tried to go for his own reroll, but the Jinx is slowly ramping up though. There is a little bit of damage and the healing on the Jinx as well, and maybe Title is slowly coming to come back online. Maybe ZETA Division can actually come back in this game.
All right. Well, it's certainly some good news. Of course, again, our players want to try and keep out of 8th place as much as possible, limiting the options. Title going to get another round to potentially reroll into that Wukong 3 because he certainly has not got money in the bank to get it any other way, but it would be huge. We can see on our picture-in-picture there, we've got more Kaiser 3 in place. The Vanguard Syndra, that's an iron block on the front line.
And we're already kind of seeing kind of an adaptation of what we've seen from the meta in terms of ranked play. We're seeing, because Syndra is so contested, not only as a 3-star, but also as a stable 2-star to try and get them towards the tempo. These Vanguard units, these Shapeshifter units are not as contested. So these 3-cost 3-stars are now becoming a lot more popular at trying to get online as this frontline tank. And even when Syndra is only 2-star, when you have so much attack speed and the scaling that Syndra has, it can be a little bit more powerful as the Wukong 3 now gets hit now from Title. So even though he's been the one this game that's tried to contest all the re-rollers, he's now hit his composition online as well.
Last item coming in, Redemption, means that Wukong should be able to shrug off most of what's going up against him. Bear in mind, we've got Marta on the field as well, so the rest of these units going to hopefully get killed off at the right kind of time to heal up Wukong and leave just Jinx and Wukong standing.
Fairy in the end has hit the 9 Fairy on the other side. So we have the Radiant items now on the Callista. We have the Radiant item on the front line as well. So a lot more damage, a lot more extra power over to the Fairy units. But is this going to be enough? Is the healing on the front line as well on this Rakan going to be enough? The Wukong's trying to take up a lot of damage. The shielding coming in as well. But the healing from this Rakan, the Radiant items from the Fairy are just way too much to deal with. And Title is going to go extremely low on health. Is it enough to take him out? No, he survives on just 1 HP, 4 HP to be exact.
Just a little bit of a confirmation on the Fairy numbers there. So 850 health across the team. The Crown giving you 75% bonus damage. And of course, you mentioned before, the Radiance coming in for the items as well, just hugely powerful. Taro, though, of course, the potential saver of the ZETA team from before, is trying to stay online here. We've got, of course, the Nami in place. We've got the Syndra in place as well. Taro is still on low HP, as is Title. They really need to avoid each other going forwards.
And this is kind of where you have to make sure that your players are just trying to take as less damage as possible. As you see in Title here, you do see the death cap in the Infinity Force, I should say, on that summon unit coming in as well. It might not be enough, though, to be honest with you, because I feel like it's going to be a little bit more difficult to try and do this. But actually,
have some faith in our school mascot.
Okay, maybe the Eldritch summon is actually pretty good. I mean, the 3-star Syndra on the other side as well. So Taro actually looking like potentially in a big spot, but I feel like the HP difference at the moment between the likes of Taro and Kess and Shelty is so big, you know, it's over 10 HP, which is like basically over a round at this point. So it's really difficult, and ZETA needs to do something of a miracle to try and catch up.
I mean, we talked about the, being willing to sacrifice your HP to save your teammates. From ZETA Division, that's just not an option for anyone but Kato, who's on a massive win streak. So he doesn't want to give up around. The bottom 3 players, they can't afford to give up around either.
Yeah, that's exactly that. And I feel like it's going to be a situation where 2 of these players from ZETA Division are going to be up against each other in this bottom of the standings eventually, which means that we might be seeing a team kill again for 2 games in a row. But it is at the moment going to be Title coming up against LGQF.
Okay, Title, let's see what you've got. I mean, you've certainly managed to find everything you were looking for. We've even got a 2-star Olaf in the mix as well. You mentioned before the itemization of Jinx, very good for especially with the Hextech Gunblade, to keep that Wukong alive for most of the round. And I think a raw unit quality, at least for the time being, Title should have this one. No! The Kog'Maw is just a little bit too much of a sting. Title out in 8th place. We might even be seeing a second one from ZETA Division going out soon too.
This is looking pretty bad right now for ZETA. I mean, Shelty going down as well could mean that the rest of ZETA could be catching up a little bit on HP. I mean, to be fair, even the top of the standings as well with YGQF and also Sharon, two of these players are also pretty close on HP as well, you know, 44 HP all the way down to 12, so there's only about a 23 difference in terms of HP in this whole lobby. So what looked like a really strong early start here for Wolves, ZETA has hit their composition and has hit them power spikes online right now and could be looking to try and come back.
Oh boy, yeah, I wasn't expecting to see the 9 Fairy coming in though.
It's
the Shao, I mean, yeah, at this point, it's worth noting there is a loss we kind of missed happening there from the Shao side of things. So presumably this isn't an unbeatable board.
I feel like at the moment you don't have that Kalista 2-star, which is such a big thing, and the Riyadh 2-star. Okay, I mean...
Let's just delete everything we just said because it doesn't matter anymore. Fairies are here to stay.
Just talk it into existence, but look at this, 10 portal being hit this game as well. The Giga portal is coming out. The spatulas are coming wild in this game.
We are going off the charts strong with this one. The portals are bringing us every type of giggle imaginable. It's going to be a laugh riot all the way into an elimination for Shelty. They are out, which means that Kez stays in and we more or less equalize things between the teams.
Oh, this lobby just got real interesting real quick with Shelty going out as well with so much being hit. 10 portals. Look at that portal, it's so shiny. Oh, it's so cool.
Don't look into it, Stuart. You may not be able to draw yourself back again.
My eyes, incredible in the end. Unfortunately for Taro at the moment, is going to be sitting on 4 HP. Kez could be the saving force in this lobby though, but I feel like if 2 of the players do go out in the bottom 3 with Taro potentially going out as well, it does mean it is going to be a little bit of a struggle because 3 of the Wolves Esports members at the moment still sitting in that top 3.
I do wonder though, because yeah, absolutely, while we've got the stark divide between current positions of the teams, there isn't that much HP in it. We don't have like one big player at the top running wild and free, which is unlimited HP for the rest of the game. It's still open for business. Taro, though, we can see, third one along, looking closely at his screen. Of course, he can't affect the game at this point, as the mascot will get torn to pieces, and Nasus won't be able to suffer any more insults as ZETA Division, 2 members out in the bottom 4.
Another team kill, another one going out for ZETA Division. That is going to be Taro going out in 6th place. So now it's really down to Kaito and Kez trying to really scrape into that top 2. I feel like at this point during the game, they need to try and get into that top 2 to have any chance of trying to win this. Or if anyone on Wolves Esports are able to try and get into that top 2 as well, it's going to be really difficult. But I feel like the big thing here is this 9 Fairy against 10 Portal. I really want to see this matchup to see what way it goes.
Well, I think you called that really well before. Yeah, we had the Jinx as a temporary item holder with the Kalista coming in. Yeah. You know, be able to make full use of all 3 of her item slots. She is an absolute monster. We'll get to see. I don't think anyone was expecting this one to be a 2-0. Certainly not a 2-0 in favor of Wolves Esports, but perhaps we should have had more faith in our Chinese competitors.
Yeah, I think the CN region in general definitely coming in very, very strong into this tournament, as well as seeing both sides. Camille 2-star being hit on the other side as well, so that's going to be even more power here for Kez on the other side. Is it going to be enough though? Rise could be a potential as well. There isn't 3 more Rises on the bench there.
There's no way.
I mean, this lobby is definitely cooking, that's for sure. I mean, you can see the 9th Fairy with that Rakan frontline being so tanky.
I think you present it as a threat. The thing is, it's so easy to intercede and stop that from being even possible.
Yes.
That I don't think we're going to be seeing the 3-star forecast in this tournament so much, but we'll see the Fairies up against at least a version of things so far. You can see the front line, the Rakan just shrugs off every piece of damage. He's getting all the healing in the world thanks to all that fairy goodness. As we do have a Wolfire YGQF out in 4th place, we're left with 2 apiece.
This is going to be another close one, Counterfeit. I feel like this is going to be another close game. I feel like at the moment it's between Kess and also the player that also went for the Fairy 9 Fairy as well, making sure that it could be a possibility as well. We thought that maybe ZETA Division was going to be the one that gets knocked out this time around, but this 10 Portal being really, really strong. Now the Dragon coming online here for Kaito to try and keep himself alive as well. This could be an extremely big round, and it is. Both players on 1 HP. Who's going to be one that keeps himself alive?
You got to bring out the big guns here in the top 4. Serene is almost out of there. For the ZETA Division are definitely in major trouble here. They come out the top 4. with the big disadvantage. You can see the Kaito is able to stand up, but the raw damage on display here from Kaito is overwhelming. The Syndra cannot stand the bigger encounters here, and we will be seeing the elimination.
Sharon going out here as well, going to be going out in 4th place, and maybe, just maybe, ZETA Division has done it. Both the players at the moment are sitting in the top 2. Incredible job here to pivot towards this 10 portal board. The Wandering Trainer coming out on day number 1 here is so incredible to see. But now it's down to really who's going to be coming up against who, because is Kaito going to be coming up potentially against Kess here? Like, do you make your board weaker? I'm not too sure exactly what oh no, it is going to happen. It's going to be the ZETA Division players going head-to-head.
That's not what you want to see at all. But you've got to make way with the portal to the Nether after it's going to be coming in. Just absolutely ripping through everything. You can see the right-hand side of the flank just absolutely destroyed. Kez able to just go through it like it's not even there. Kaito is gone. And that's going to leave us with very few players standing at all.
Very few people standing, 2 players standing right now, and it really comes down to this top 2. It's such a close game right now to see who's going to come out on top. With Kez at the moment on a 6-game win streak with 10 portal. Another fairy emblem there as well. I mean, if you really want it, I mean, don't really need it in the end, but it comes down to the 2 vertical traits coming into this set. 10 portal against 9 fairies. Such an incredible way to try and close this out. 2-star being hit there on Nora. The Yumi also going to be pairing in there as well to try and get that little bit of extra value.
All right, let's go around once again. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see if we can figure out what's going to be coming in towards the 10. You called for the tower before, and the Tower of Power has arrived. ZETA Division, they've got potentially the 1st and 3rd place in the top 4.
This is going to come down to it. The last battle potentially. Is that tower going to be make the big difference here for the 10 portal? There's the anti-heal now, the Morellonomicon on the Nora, so that means that the front line is not going to be healing as much.
Oh boy. I really would love to see this. The 2 big verticals up against each other, but we know the numbers are bigger. So it will be Kez taking 1st place in the lobby.
Incredible job to get 1st place. 10 portal, 2 vertical traits in the end as well. An incredible job here for both of these teams. Incredibly close to see, you know, which team is going to come out on top in this one. But overall, another incredible game, another fun game as well in the end, making sure that these 2 teams go really neck and neck in this series.
Oh boy. But I mean, just be able to find it through there as we get official confirmation. ZETA Division have drawn the series even 1 apiece, which means we get to see this whole thing over again. From the first game when things got a little bit wild to a game 2 when it went off the charts crazy. I think we're in line for a decider that's going to absolutely satisfy everybody.
I think in general, this format is delivering already. We're only in our 1st series of the day, and all the expectations have been up to the limits. It's been incredible to see how these teams have been able to go up against each other, how well they've been able to do as well. And
went off the charts crazy. I think we're in line for a decider that's going to absolutely satisfy everybody.
I think in general, this format is delivering already. We're only in our 1st series of the day, and all the expectations have been up to the limits. It's been incredible to see how these teams have been able to go up against each other, how well they've been able to do as well, and being able to come out on top. But in the end, it was the vertical traits coming out on top right at the end. 9 Fairy against 10 Portal. What an incredible game in the end. But as you said, counterfeit. We go to our 1st series all the way to game number 3, and it's going to come down to this. And as you mentioned as well, you know, Wolves did have a lifeline. They do have a lifeline, but that's now been shut down. They don't have a lifeline anymore, and ZETA Division maybe have the momentum in this one.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they got for us. I think, of course, I think the thing we're going to be taking forward to the rest of the day is the Wandering Trainers for both teams showed us exactly what it's capable of. If we didn't have one on both sides, the team which did have it was just going to take the top place in the lobby, almost guaranteed.
And Wandering Trainer is definitely like a high-risk, high-reward Augment, but I feel like this is what needs to happen in this form. This is what needs to happen in this 4v4 tournament. You need to take these risks. You need to go for these high rewards. You need to go for these big caps. 2 games in a row now, we have seen Augments play a huge part. Flexible in game number 1 with the emblems making a huge difference. Wandering Trainer in the second game making a huge difference as well.
All right, the Esports World Cup presenting Teamfight Tactics will continue after this short break. We have got an absolutely amazing third game to come. Whichever team wins goes to the upper bracket. Whichever team loses goes to the lower bracket and will be 1 game away from being knocked out entirely. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back in a few minutes' time.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Ah, fancy seeing you here. Welcome to the Players' Lounge at the Esports World Cup. TFT is well and truly underway. I just want to give you a bit of insight into what the players experience as soon as they arrive here. Catering over there, get a full belly before you get into the server. Of course, if you're feeling a little bit tired, you can get caffeinated over at the coffee bar there. And that's not all. Through here, we've got the game zone. So if you're feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit under pressure, you just want to have a little bit of fun before taking things so seriously, because this is serious business, right? $500,000 prize pool is up for grabs, and we've got some of the best players in the world competing for it. You want to get physical? Physical games. Video games. We've got a juice bar as well, so you can get some freshly pressed juice, which is good for the soul and good for the body before you get playing as well. This is just a sample of what the players get to experience as soon as they arrive at the one-of-a-kind Esports World Cup. Oh, that's good coffee.
Of Teamfight Tactics it has been so far. We've got just one more to go in our first series of the day. And Stuart, this first series has delivered.
Oh, it's delivered and more counterfeit. I feel like we, in general, I feel like we never thought we would see a vertical comp, especially a 10 portal coming up in game number 2, and even just in the first day in general. But I feel like in general, when you hit these vertical compositions, you know, they were talking about the 10 Eldritch as well, being able to get that huge summon. I feel like in general, if you can get to that point where you have that win condition of reaching that high vertical point of the traits, then that's your win condition. That's the way in which ZETA Division were able to win that second game. You know, they were actually kind of tied on points in the end, but it was actually ZETA Division, because they got that first place, because they got that 10 portal and was able to win. That's why we're going into that third game.
You know, we have to wonder again, what would the game would have looked like if we didn't have that in place? So of course, you know, we didn't have so much of an impact in the previous game directly from that Organ coming in from the very beginning of the game, but I think as well with the Wandering Trainers, I like that you've got a couple of different options there for all players. So you're pretty much guaranteed to get something you can work with nearly every combination.
And the Gold Wandering Trainer is something that's only really come out over recent sets, I believe. I believe it was last set 11, the Gold Wanderer. Maybe it was set 10, but it was one of the most recent sets that it got like added into the gold traits, which, you know, as you mentioned, having that 2 emblem possibility, we know there are so many different ways in which you can use that. There are some possibilities that maybe you do kind of low roll in terms of the emblems that you do get, but if you do get one of these vertical traits in, like the Fairy, like the Portal, like the Eldritch, that could be a way in which you can try and tempo and try and keep that win streak going into the late game, where all you need is to build one more Spatula, you know, build one more Fairy, build one more Eldritch, build one more Portal, because these are craftable Spatulas that you can build into emblems.
So just to zoom us out a little bit again, just to take us into the big picture. Of course, you know, we are in the group stage. We are literally at the very beginning, at least of this stage of the competition. Of course, we had the qualifiers, the regional qualifiers for our teams to even get to this point in the first place. But, you know, in the competition itself, this is literally the first games being played across all the groups here today. Coming up, of course, after this series is done, T1 versus Weibo, Toronto Ultra with Onsei Path to follow, and then KC versus Teamfight Tactics to end out the day. We will have a much better idea of what the Esports World Cup Teamfight Tactics will look, what the tournament overall will look like by the end of the day.
And I feel like the meta is definitely going to shift throughout this tournament as well. I think there are ways in which this meta can be a little bit maybe all over the place in game number 1. I still feel like it's maybe teams kind of figuring things out, kind of getting a little bit of rhythm, getting a little bit of comfort on the stage as well, because for some of these players, it might be the first time that they're playing on a stage, you know, in this sort of kind of, in this format and also in this scenario, because in terms of TFT, we haven't had, too many lands. Really the only land that we really had was obviously the Vegas Open that happened. But outside of that, we haven't had many players sitting on a stage, especially in front of a crowd and things like that as well. So I think that's such a big thing coming into this tournament.
I mean, the thing is, you are literally out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like, in every way around it. Like, while you've, of course, got your teammates around you who've been bonding with, some teams for longer than others, and you've got the support staff there. Of course, you've got the referees looking after you can see here. You're still not where you're used to playing TFT. In terms of hours spent playing TFT, on live versus, playing from home, it's not even comparable at this point. Of course, our players want to build up these LAN hours, build up those studio hours, and get used to that, but there's been so few opportunities for them to do so.
No, I think that's definitely the thing, and definitely the difference as well of being able to get that opportunity going and get that opportunity being really, really powerful at the moment, as we can see the keys and everything being moved around. I mean, in general, each team having a key in kind of the system, the trophy system that they have here at the Esports World Cup is so unique. I've been here for previous weeks as well. It's such a great kind of unique way in which to kind of bring these clubs in, especially to games like Teamfight Tactics. We don't really get a situation where we get these clubs coming in, signing these players, having a 4v4 tournament format, but it makes things, a lot more competitive and also a lot more fun as well, as we can see the trophy as well on stage, which the winner will be able to put their key on that trophy right at the end of day number 4.
Yeah, and of course, the outside of that key will be going into the, the memory of this tournament as well. Of course, in the course of the day, nobody is going to be eliminated from the competition. They'll merely be put in a position where they could potentially be eliminated tomorrow. So no crushings as of yet of hopes and dreams, but certainly, It's a big test, I think, particularly for our teams that don't win out today in their first series. That's going to really challenge them to be able to keep their focus, to keep their mental intact, knowing that they're going to be balancing on the precipice for the rest of the competition.
I mean, it's good that teams also have kind of that second chance as well. I think that's also a big thing, you know, being able to potentially, you know, even if you lose today, you do have the chance to go, you know, back-to-back wins tomorrow and also on Saturday, being able to get into the quarterfinals. It does put you in a pretty tough spot though, because if you lose this first series, that does mean that you go, as you mentioned, you go straight into kind of the lower bracket in this double elimination kind of group stage, which is a very unique format. So if you lose 2 games, you're out. If you win 2 games, you're in.
All right, well, it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a longer delay. So with that in mind, I'm sure you've heard plenty from us already, but fortunately, we've got some big brains on the line to bring you guys in and make sure that you're fully prepared for this Game 3. So guys in the studio, let us know what you thought about the series so far.
All right, thank you, Counterfeit. We are going to be here on the analyst desk, Casanova, joined by Hupasan and Weta. And let's talk a little bit about that game, too, because it was absolutely insane finish. And that's where I want to start. I want to start with the end, and then we can talk a little bit about the beginning. But first of all, the charm, the Dragon coming in, probably won the game for ZETA Division. Tell me a little bit about it.
Because like that fight was looking like absolutely like not going to go the way of Kato at all, right? And then the charm comes in, and like, it would have been a Syndra 2 as a Syndra 3 fight, pretty much, essentially coming down to it. And then the Dragon comes in, just absolutely switches around the incredible momentum, and then it looked like Wolves were going to take the series, and all of a sudden, ZETA almost rose from the dead like the Dragon. Yeah,
100%. And the big thing is at that point, because of the placements of the other 2 members, they needed exactly first and third, and that one fight gave the 3rd place, and from there, Kess was on 10 Portal. Yeah, there's 9 Fairy, but tell me about these verticals, because 10 Portal has to be one of the best, maybe the best. It's up there.
Yeah, within Temporal, with Eldritch 10, with the High God, Super Bolivar will be the best. And Night Fairy will probably be the one that should win the game, but then Temporal was enabled, and it was totally amazing. These are verticals that are very difficult to see, so Wandering Trainer has a possibility to get those elements, so those emblems in, were enabling these teams to do it. So actually, great performance, and it's hyped to see it, because everyone was holding Syndras throughout all the game, and then they cap out with the verticals.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on the Wandering Trainers here just a little bit, because it really shaped up both teams' game plans, right? Because you had the one Wandering Trainer where the goal really was just to grief Tidal as hard as possible, right? Yeah. Just play Jinx without interfering with the Cockmore line, which you normally would have liked to have a little bit more heavily on that board state. And that kind of led to the fact that we saw YGQF kind of fall off as well, kind of heavily towards the late game of the game. So like they were like kind of thought they had it in the back, and it would have worked out perfectly for them. But then the Dragon came in.
Yeah, 100% is so cool. And, you know, you mentioned the Wandering Trainer. I want to talk about maybe some of the other augments that we saw throughout the game, because they really highlighted the 4v4 format. I want to talk specifically kind of Tiny Titans and Pilfer. Can you tell me a little bit about how these kind of impact in 4v4?
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with Pilfer. It's economy. So the first unit you kill, the next round, you get it for free. So actually, it's a boost of the economy you get from the early game. It's very helpful to get that tempo in and to start griefing the other players, to get the possibility of rolling for additional charms. We saw that they were actually, when they knew that they were going against the opponent, especially in the mid game, they're going to trying to leverage and reduce as much of HP as possible. So in that case, Pilfer is perfect, gives you economy in the later game. I don't know if you want to talk a little more about Tiny Titans, how's that possibility and of preserving HP so important now?
Yeah, so like again, like in traditional gameplay with TFT, right? Like Tiny Titans, it buys you like 1 or 2 placements maybe, but here is a shared HP pool. It opens up a ton of extra sacking strategies, right? You're going to be able to do a lot of interesting things about it, but when push comes to shove and you kind of have to do battle straight in a 2v2 situation, lacking that extra combat power ended up actually kind of coming back to kind of hurt them a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool because you use it, you let the Tiny Titans person, every time they got their teammates in the pool, they're like, all right, I'll take the hit. I got 30 extra HP, but as you said, eventually it just was not enough. And let's talk a little bit about the strategy of these 2 teams, because specifically ZETA Division in these games has looked really good at playing for tempo and avoiding the 8th places. Here it didn't work out. Tidal got giga griefed by everybody and it just couldn't happen. But they've been playing towards that. And how does that strategy kind of look?
Yeah, we can come back to the first game. It's actually what happened. They avoided air place, but didn't have someone to be their hero. Right. They didn't have someone to close it out, to win out, and get the first place. So the tiebreaker was not good for them, and in terms of points, it wasn't good enough. So it's very important. You need one player that doesn't go 8th, and then you need one player to go first and go for that win out. Here we had 2 players setting with the ferries, the 9 ferries, and also obviously the 10 portals that win the game. So you actually need someone that has that possibility. Normally Syndra, but in this case, I don't know, all the Syndras were out of the pool and nobody had a to restart. So that's what's going to happen with something so strong. No one guessed it because everyone is riffing it.
And that was like a very funny situation in Title's Pandora's bench gameplay where like all of a sudden he had
like 7, right?
Yeah, and like does it kind of go back to like the Syndra line deciding who plays Syndra, because at some point at 2-1, like Title had a very interesting Syndra spot. He already had 1 bow open, had a rod, had a belt, could have gone for Rage Blade plus Nash's 2, or gone for a red buff and just tried to play that line out. But again, went with the Pilfer, ended up going into the Jinx line instead, right? And those type of micro decisions are super interesting to follow, because in a normal game of TFT, I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm slamming Nash's, I'm slamming Rage Blade, I'm thinking, me, Syndra, mute all. Right, that doesn't happen in 4v4.
Yeah, and I think let's dig even more into this idea of like a hero on each team, right? In this game, it was obvious, right? 9 Fairy, 10 Portal. Those are the 2 that we're going to look at as being the big heroes. But as we go into this final game, I want to see who the big heroes are. Is it Syndra? Is it another Vertical? So let's send it back over to Counterfeit and it's Stuart, and they're going to take it away with the final game of our first series.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for the insights from the analyst desk. I think, you know, certainly from the teams, I think they're running through a very similar process in their mind, because, again, this is still such new ground for so many of our teams and players. Even with the qualifiers from before, every game is going to be teaching you something new about the format, and you can never account for how the opposing team, you know, their style is going to interact with your team style and your team's specific strategies.
And I think we to bring up a really good point on the analyst desk as well, about kind of the situation of Syndra. You know, who takes Syndra, who has the best spot of Syndra, which is something that we were mentioning during the cast as well. Kind of understanding who's going to be that player, who's going to be the player in this game, going to be the one that's maybe going to be on a lose streak and trying to take away units. You know, in that game, it was Title. You know, we normally know Title as one of the, you know, kind of the best players really in the world, to be fair, to be honest with you. Kind of, we thought that he was going to be the main carry, but you can see how in these games, it differs every single game. Every single game is going to be different, and Title in that game had to hold the Syndras and play a different composition to allow the rest of ZETA to get high positions on the boards.
I mean, there's also the thing to consider as well, you know, something from my own limited personal experience playing competitively in other games and things, is that I think from the side of Safe Division, you can be tempted into going for very clever and good strategies that are complicated but are still risky. They, you know, they can have huge payoffs, but ultimately when they don't pay off, it ends up looking like, you know, that you didn't have such a good plan in place in the first place. I would really like to see, you know, particularly for whichever team comes out on top of this one, with of course us tied 1 apiece, you know, to get control of that bottom 4 to start with and try and keep yourself out of 8th place so you don't have to be as desperate in your back half of the game.
Yeah, in that game, it kind of felt like ZETA Division were kind of playing catch-up, really, in the end, with how many of them were sitting in the bottom 4, but it was really kind of waiting until, like, that 10 portal hit, for example, right? You know, kind of waiting for that big opportunity to pick, but it seems like we are finally getting things ready, Counterfeit. Our 3rd match in this best-of-3. Whoever wins this goes into the upper bracket.
All right, we'll finish out our first series here and now, as you said. A hugely important game. You know, certainly Zero Tenacity come into this one with a little bit of momentum. They've managed to reset the series and make this effectively a 1-game encounter. But we said, you know, here in Group A, this is one of the groups where you really want to be coming out of it as first seeds, because you're not quite as big heavy hitters in here, so it's much more possible.
Yes, as we mentioned, you know, with the rest of this group as well, it's very... I think it's a very difficult group to get out of for every single team, because I feel like, again, as I mentioned, I feel like most of these teams are very closely matched in this group, so it's going to be super interesting to see how things go. I was going to say gold, because I was going to say Golden Finale is our portal as well. So how things go. There you go, I'm mixing two of my sentences into one now. We're getting to that stage of the day already. Yeah, Golden Finale is going to be our portal choice this time around. So again, I feel like the meta is definitely very different to what we thought it was going to be, Counterfeit.
Well, I think this is the thing for the players. There's so many variables in place for the 4v4 format. I don't blame them at all for choosing the lowest possible variance portal they can go for in every single one of the games in the series, to say, we've got enough to think about right now. We don't need to have, you know, wandering trainers coming in and flooding the entire board with extra emblems or anything like that.
Yeah, there was an opportunity to take the likes of Pot of Gold in Nav 1, which again, as you mentioned, a pretty high variant to just get so much gold near the end as well. But we have to try and look out here to see what units these players are going to be picking up this early on, as there's a few pairs here at the moment for Shelty, trying to pick things up. A lot of players early on definitely prioritizing that Zoe as a main carry early on in terms of the 1 cost. The analyst desk we're talking about at the start of the day. There is maybe a possibility that we could be seeing that Zoe 3-star coming in with Scholar. Haven't seen it just yet, but there is a possibility for a reroll coming in.
But yeah, I mean, if nothing else, certainly performs very well as an item haul for the time being.
Yep.
One player which I want to bring focus to in this game, just because, kind of checking through some of the previous round results, because we've seen players moving up and down pretty dramatically in terms of results between game 1 and 2. There is one player, as we get our first first and of course last gold augment in the lobby of Golden Finale coming in. We have some interesting choices there. I'll come back to the point from again because we need to get things online right now. Keepers coming in immediately. That's raw power on the ball from the start.
Yeah, Keepers definitely feels like this is going to go more towards the multi-strikers here, because Keepers can work so well with multi-strikers because most of your carries are melee carries.
Very duelist of you.
Like, oh yeah, exactly. Kind of like duelist of previous sets as well. Very, very similar. Doesn't have a casting just yet, unfortunately, but definitely looks to be going towards that route and can definitely try and maybe look for a loose streak early on, try and sell some units and see how things go. So big thing is looking at the right-hand side. Loads of players leveling up right now. 2 players of ZETA and 2 players of Wolves win streaking right now, trying to make their boards a little bit stronger.
Well, we do get to see something a little bit different here. The build different coming in. I know, Stuart, this was the composition that you were kind of looking into before we started this series, specifically as being one which could potentially give you a real clean line through the game, which no one else can really contest you on meaningfully.
Yes, that's exactly the thing. I feel like build different is definitely going to be very, very strong in this 4v4 format because, as you mentioned, the units might not be as contested. You're going to be pushing levels. You're not going to be playing reroll unless you want to play like, I mean, reroll could be interesting with build different. I don't think it would be very good. But yeah, one of the best build different compositions at the moment is kind of this mix of actually AP damage and also AD damage, with the likes of Fiora being a carry. You can put Nami in there as well. There is a lot of 4 costs and 5 costs in the build different composition. I think the difficulty with build different is getting to that point. You know, you're at the start of the game, you're going to be pretty low. You're going to be maybe struggling a little bit if you're not going to be able to get a board going, but that can scale pretty well into the later stages of the game.
One thing I do want to point out as we check in with Kato here, who has taken an early loss. Of course, Cypher, of course, is front and center of a lot of people's minds. In this one, has brought out the Metabolic Accelerator to play the very long game. Shelty on the side with a support golem, of course. We mentioned it before in one of our previous games. Incredibly powerful for giving you early power. You said yourself, the extra body on the board and a very relevant buff to your team makes a very strong early game.
Especially something like Aegis as well, right? You know, being able to pick up Aegis as an extra kind of item in a way for a gold augment is very, very powerful. And obviously now it not being a target dummy, it's now a golem, which means it can walk around, it can take aggro from the likes of the other units as well, which is going to be really, really interesting to see how it works. I mean, there is a possibility as well, which I also is another reason why I feel like Keepers is also pretty strong at the moment, because you have charms that can give you target dummies, you have the support golems that can also help you out with Keepers and just give you that big and extra shield. And speaking of, casting in terms of multi-strikers as well with the Keepers, there are 2 castings on both these boards as well now, so we have to have a look here and see what builds are going to be picking up here for some of these players. But as you mentioned, we're tied with that Metabolic Accelerator. Not going to be too hard with kind of loose streaking right now.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really interesting because this isn't something we've really seen from before. Of course, we've talked about how Titan was kind of playing a more sacrificial role, and we assume, giving his experience across to the other members of the team and helping guide their games as well. But in this case, really kind of forced to sit back in this game, and eventually, he will last longer. But of course, the Metabolic Accelerator is not going to be paired with anything like a Fortune from the previous set to give him a guaranteed big late game win.
Yeah, that's an interesting point actually you made, because there's not really a kind of econ trait in this set, which I think is something that we haven't really mentioned yet. Kind of the big cash outs that you can normally get. Interesting enough, 2 splashes being picked up here. 1 from ZETA, from Taro, and 1 from Shelty.
No, I think there's even an extra one there as well. So if we're looking for a game, which
wow.
last game was defined by our verticals, remember, the Wandering Trainers, we were only using really one emblem from each of those. So having 3 spatulas join the game now means that we could be seeing even more big verticals.
Oh, I mean, verticals are definitely a big win condition for some of these players, and definitely is something that players can kind of work towards in terms of the later stages of the game. But for now, Shouty looking pretty strong with this composition. It's not a win streak so far. In terms of win streaks and loss streaks, all ZETA players at the moment, bar one, are on a loss streak. So eventually, these 3 players near the bottom are going to be on the loss streak. So it's really dependent now to see which one of these players actually prefers to be on the lose streak. You know, which the communication is going to come in. Title's probably going to be like, hey, Kev, are you in a better position than us? Are you going to be able to pick it up? Kaito, are you in a better position? Do I play weak aboard? And do I play for a lose streak? Because we saw in the last game how well Taito, I feel like, played with kind of denying enemy compositions with the loose streak.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you know, when you're, depending on your position in the game, you can sacrifice your resources in a way which you would never dream of doing in a regular game of TFT, because, you know, playing just to deny one player makes no sense at all when you're playing against, you know, 6 other players in the same game. But we'll see how things work out, Serin. Currently looking very good, Lashao. But 2 Wolves players, both on win streaks. We talked about before, this can be a bit awkward, but they might both make it out of stage 2 with the win streaks intact.
That is very scary for ZETA. If both Wolves eSport players come out with a win streak, it is going to be definitely difficult. We do see Crown guarded as well as the augment here for Sherin, being able to pick that one up. Bill Different already on one side as well. But is it going to be the fight? It is going to be the fight.
Oh, the thumbs up.
Strikers. Oh, it's really unfortunate that they're not going to be able to both go into this as a win streak. But I feel like the Bill Different player definitely has maybe a lot more cap, in my opinion. So I feel like putting the win streak onto Lashao is not too bad, especially because he has a Cogmod 2 and a Kassadin 2 on his board already. So this board can win streak for a very long time.
Yeah, I did get word from observers, I believe that at least one of the players was using the minor polymorph charm before to kind of get some of those 2 stars online a little bit faster, which of course, you know, there's a lot going on in these games to be able to keep our heads about. But Taro, we were talking about the lack of economy trait. The closest we've kind of got in this one is going to be our Sugarcraft friends with the emblem in place and the Honey Monster as well. We've got something special cooking here from Taro.
It's definitely going to be very interesting. Again, he is taking flexible, which we did see in game number 1 as well. So is going to be getting them extra emblems. I believe he was the player as well that was also picked up the spatula at the carousel as well. So
sure
he's going to be getting a lot of emblems this game. We'll have to maybe stay on his board to see which one he's going to be getting next as well, because it's at the start of every single stage. He's going to get another emblem. If you get another Sugarcraft, if you get another Honey Monster, this could be something that Taro is cooking.
Well, notice the 3 Sugarcraft in place, which seems like it's telling for... Okay, for a second I was about to believe, is it going to be the same one again? Okay. No. So, you know, we still, though, it feels like we've at least got 2 emblems which fit together pretty naturally, and we can maybe move up to 4 Sugarcraft in the near future.
No, definitely. I feel like you can have that little bit of scaling. You can see the Jinx on the board as well with maybe a few items. We see in YGQF here trying to play towards this Kassadin. As expected, 5 multi-striker with keepers as well. Is going for the Bloodthirster. Interesting enough, no QSS on this Kassadin, which is normally a very pro item for some players. Being able to get that Quicksilver and allow you to get immune to CC is so important, but maybe looking to try and save as much HP as possible.
It's really interesting because normally we have, you know, the scaling item as well alongside the Quicksilver
Blade,
to give you some inevitability. But in this case, it's up-front damage with the Nash's Tooth and the Rabadons. We can see if the Kassadin does walk up to the backline and find Squishy targets, he can go through them. But if he gets blocked, I wonder if he's going to be anywhere near as effective.
I totally agree. I feel like the burst damage is there for Kassadin, but I feel like at the same time, if there's any sort of crowd control that comes in, you know, like the likes of the Nami, the Shen on the front line as well, even someone like Elise, you know, someone as simple as Elise, it can be a bit of a struggle here to try and get things going. But the multi-strikers is going to be online here. Team building is an option here as well. It is only the silver version, so you do only get 1 now. You get 1 after 7-player combats. Maybe thinking of taking Silver Veil as well as an opportunity to give Kassadin the extra crowd control immunity, and that is going to be the option here for
yeah, I mean,
YGQF.
that's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of what we saw from Ashe in the previous set, that some players would, you know, while traditionally you build her as a scaling unit, you can build her as a burst in this case. It feels like a high-risk proposition, but with the keepers in place, which we were talking about before, and that CC immunity in hand, all you've got to worry about is getting perhaps burst out by a Syndra before you can get through.
Big thing to mention as well, which we haven't actually talked about just yet, some of these charms are actually so crazy in terms of 4 versus 4. We saw YGQF there actually pick up the revealing your next opponent, which if you're able to communicate that with your team, you're actually able to kind of figure out who's going to be up against who. Because if you know that you're going up against someone from ZETA, then maybe someone else on your team might be able to pick that up as well. So in general, you know, it's been very difficult to kind of track charms, but I think in general there are a lot of charms in this 4v4 meta which could be very, very powerful.
No, I'm absolutely with you. I think it's completely crucial. You're right. It's information is absolutely power in 4v4, and having that best information, it's also a testing thing of the kind of the leadership structure of a team to make use of that information. Say, okay, we've got this. The implications are this, and the follow on from here.
It's that branching out as well.
It is. We need more emblems in our lives, of course. Let's make everybody hunters as well.
So many emblems is crazy. He does have a Reforger as well. So maybe there's a possibility. Okay. Hear me out.
All right. Okay. I'm here for it.
Hear me out. If there is emblems that you maybe don't want, you put 3 emblems on one person and you just re-roll all of them.
Yep.
You just reforge all of them. And then maybe there's a possibility. But on the other side, we're seeing Jack's 3-star being picked up here for the keeper's board as well, which kind of came out of nowhere, really, to be fair.
Yeah, I do wonder if there might have been some charm shenanigans going on there, but certainly he's going to be an absolute unit on that front line. Kato on the other side, you can see making use of the Twitch as a very good item holder. And it's actually ripping through the board there, making good use of the 1 cost. Taking a big, as we come onto Carousel, taking a quick look at where we are in the state of the game. Li Xiao is continuing to dominate with that built different board, unstoppable. Title though, managing to keep his loss streak intact. I'm assuming we must have seen, yes, a Tiny Titans coming in to push him up towards the top of the table, but to have 88 HP and that much of a loss streak, however you get there, it's still a great thing.
And you can see by his board at the moment, he's definitely looking to play towards the Syndra as well. You know, the Syndra's online, the 2 Vanguards on the front line are online as well. So the big thing is just trying to get that Syndra online, but because he has the Metabolic and now he has the Tiny Titans, he has so much more HP to work with that he doesn't actually need to roll down as much as what maybe you would like to see. You know, sometimes at level 6, you actually see players rolling down to 30, maybe even 20 gold to try and hit that 2-star Syndra. In Title situation, you don't really need to take that much big of a risk of rolling down because you have so much HP to work with Tiny Titan and Metabolic Accelerator.
Yeah, in short, you've just bought yourself time for Title, and I think particularly if you can start turning a corner, and you know, once you can start winning with a Metabolic Accelerator as well, you're pushing yourself out of a potential elimination. Even though, of course, you've given up the gold augment worth of power to get there, it again sets up Title potentially in this game to be a strong second place finisher to complement whoever shoots for first.
No, definitely. I mean, definitely in terms of first place at the moment, it definitely looks like Xiao is doing incredible work, but he's going to be going up here against one of his teammates. That multi-striker on the other board. I know it was now. Do you know what I was thinking for a second? I was like, where did that Jack's 3-star come from? But it was actually the charm as what you mentioned, because there is a charm which temporarily upgrades one of your 1-star or 2-star units on your board to a 3-star unit.
That's right, yes.
That was
I think the moon one. Yes. I always think of the very late game charm, which lets you get a 3-star for free, but we're way too early in proceedings for that. But yeah, so we've got a potential moving up here, because of course we can see the Wolves with our teams drawn 1 game apiece. They've got 5 members in the top. All 4 of their members in the top 5. Apologies there. Of course, we know this isn't a guarantee of a win, but at least it does mean they're holding on to a lot of their HP in the early going.
No, definitely. I feel like in general, you know, ZETA Division definitely have to kind of rely on Title at this point at the moment, which is kind of big.
Just want to take a moment to point out here from Taro's side of things, I think we might have seen exactly what you were calling out, Stuart, the reforging the emblem, because we have got Sugarcraft all day, every day. 2 Sugarcraft emblems, which means we might see a 6 Sugarcraft before from Taro. We might see a gigantic tower of cake, and that could be the ultimate way to take down the lobby.
Oh, I mean, we've already had vertical traits already counterfeit. I don't know if I could deal with the big cake at this point. I mean, the cake comes through, you get the extra treats as well if you get the extra layers, which is going to be really, really huge. Obviously, the big thing, you get the extra damage and your team also gains HP as well. The Sugarcraft is kind of that scaling sort of trait, which is not as rewarding as maybe something like a econ trait like Fortune, for example, but definitely up there as like if you can get Sugarcraft in early, if you can get the stacks, if you can get them layers of Sugarcraft, then you can get a really big rewards.
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure. I think the only thing that's kind of the fly in the ointment here for Taro is he is the lowest in the lobby on HP.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. If we can see Taro get to the very late game, build up the ultimate version of Sugarcraft, he basically becomes unbeatable. You know, especially once the cake starts spewing out all of the free rewards and basically just killing everything. You know, taking out everything on the board in short order. But I don't know if Taro has got the longevity to make that happen.
As you can see here in the picture-in-picture as well, YGQF being able to get one Akali away from Akali 3-star, which could be really, really big. Unfortunately, not really a lot of Castins though. A lot of Akalis, but not a lot of the Castins, unfortunately, to start things off at the moment. And does mean that you are going to be a little bit far away from your carry. But Kess on the other side is rolling down quite a bit as well. And it seems like, in general, Kez seems to be the one this game trying to deny units, you know, denying potentially some of the Syndras, denying the Kassadins on the bench as well. Maybe realizing that his spot was maybe not as strong as the others, so he's going to be the one that's trying to make sure that you can deny away so many units.
I'm really interested to see where this one goes longer term. I mean, the ball's working pretty well right now. Kez getting a win there over Taro. Of course, who we're hoping has a long term, but after taking that previous loss, perhaps is not going to be the case. It's always a very painful thing, isn't it, when you end up in a situation where you know your late game's amazing, but you're just taking so many hits so quickly.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? You have to make sure that you get to that point and get to that point quickly, as we do see reinforcement as the choice here, so trying to maybe get that Kalista 2-star. If you can get Kalista 2-star here, or a Rakan 2-star, it would be really, really big. Ooh. Nothing yet at the moment. There is Rakan 2, and it is going to be picked up. I feel like you have to pick it up at this point. Potentially probably wanted the Kalista 2 instead, but with that Fairy as well, you know, so many of these players that picked up these spatulas during Carousel, that Fairy emblem coming in is going to be able to give you that extra item, which is going to go straight onto Rakan.
I mean, Rakan is an absolute unit. He can do so much work. Of course, we've seen the Preserver Shell being very, very popular indeed, but yeah, in this case, it looks like we're heading down the more fairy-centric group. Perhaps we'll see some more Preservers coming through longer term. Sugarcraft on the other side again. This is Taro's board. He needs to get some wins in.
That's 3 Sugarcraft emblems now. There's a third Sugarcraft there. Taro is cooking a cake, and I am all for it. I want to eat that cake so badly.
He needs to get the round wins, or at least start softening these losses, though. You can see Jinx, she's doing her best, but the items are a little bit iffy. The Sterex is not exactly what you were hoping for. At least the red buff and the Gwynsues are good, and a win is massive for Taro. Every round he survives brings him closer to being the secret weapon of the Japanese team.
And the cake is building. The cake is building, and I cannot wait to get to this point where the cake is fully stacked. As mentioned, 3 Sugarcraft. We got a bee as well. We got Honey bee in there. We got a Chrono emblem in there. We got a Frost emblem in there. We are at 6 Sugarcraft as well. Hey, why not? Putting a 7th Sugarcraft at this point, being able to get to that point of the game where you can get all the way up to as many stacks as possible, which is going to be such a big deal here. If we can see the max stacks on Sugarcraft, as you mentioned, a really big win condition.
Yeah, I mean, well, at this point, you know, you've got a pretty substantial buffer of just playing 6 Sugarcrafts for our Sugarcraft units in the first place, so why not make the best use of them? Again, this is going to be absolutely huge. Bear in mind, once more, that the Jinx is a little bit underpowered. She has at least got to a little bit more survivability. If she gets to the end of the round, she can soften the losses, but Taro takes another hit. Getting close to 600. Of course, we'll be looking for much, much bigger numbers for the ultimate victory. Flashao on the other side of things, making use of a full combat augment team to get the win in. I don't know, apologies. On the other side, Seren doing exactly what I said, but the other way around.
Other way around, indeed. Built different, still performing very, very well. 5 win streak at the moment, which is going to be really, really good for Sharon as well. Taking the Exiles, taking the Combat Caster. A lot of shielding at the moment on Sharon's board. Again, you're seeing so many Syndras across the board as well. So many players picking up Syndra, so many players picking up that extra bit of power in the end.
I do want to point out for Sharon that as we can see the Combat Caster coming in, because with the way the Vanguard works, I mean, the extra durability when you're shielded, incredibly powerful organ for this competition we see here. You know, the more time they spend shielding, you're getting a vastly stronger front line, and all the time you need for Syndra to stack up and just be able to eliminate everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about making sure the Syndra scales. Again, I feel like we're not having a single Syndra reroll this game. I could be wrong. I could maybe forget about... I'm not too sure exactly where Title is going as well. We know that Title is definitely on a big loss streak. He's already sitting in the middle of the pack as well, so maybe he has a little bit more gold. But he's also gone up to level 8. So we have a full lobby at the moment that is just playing tempo. I do not think we have really a single player going for reroll, unless it's something like maybe the Jinx reroll for something like Sugarcraft.
I mean, certainly, I wonder if this long term will be what Syndra ends up being, is, you know, a very, very good item carrier for late game units as well, just because you've got flexible itemization. Cast speed is good for a whole bunch of units. You see Syndra on the other side getting eliminated in a Syndra battle. Now it's a Nami battle. I'm thinking we're starting to see our players converging on what the kind of strategies they want, and oftentimes they're very similar strategies to each other.
Yeah, I think that's the difficulty, right? Is like when players have that extra bit of like being able to come in here, being able to get that extra little bit of strategy, is Pyro is going to be the M1 choice. Okay, that's something new that we haven't seen just yet. This is something that actually Panda was telling me about. The Pyro on Smolder being pretty powerful because you can get a lot more power, and the attack speed definitely helps out the Smolder as well. 5 Pyro is going to be a lot as well, especially with the frontline tank of the Nasus. Maybe Varus in general is not a very big tank, but if you can get to that point of getting Smolder 2 and Varus 2, that could definitely be 2 really good pairings.
All right, we'll keep your eye on Taro. Remember, he's on 10 HP. He's so close to being able to push through and get to the upper layers of this cake. A monument to the ZETA squad, but I'm not sure this Pyro Ball we saw from before is very, very powerful, and I don't think Taro's got it. No, he was tempted by the sugary goodness from the path of righteousness. Taro is out first.
Unfortunately, the cake burn, counterfeit. It's not going to be a very big cake this time around for Taro, going out in 8th place this time, and the rest of his squad is not too close, not too far behind him as well, with Kess and Kaito also sitting on 30 and 36 HP.
Okay, yeah, this is not looking good if you're a fan of Zeta Division. We were kind of trying to hedge our bets a little bit. We're saying, you know, they can still swing around the sun, come back from a low position, but with Taro out of there, like we said in the previous game, it narrows the options for the Japanese squad. You know, we could easily move into the position quite soon where Zeta Division have to get a first and second to win the series.
Yeah, it could definitely be that situation because, I mean, at this point, if you get 7th, 8th, you have to get a top 2. That's the really only way. 7th, 8th, and 1st, 2nd means that both teams are on 18 points, but then with that 18 points and you get in the 1st place, it's totally fine.
Yeah, and of course, if you get 3 players, for instance, in the bottom 4, you've guaranteed loss anyway.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to slice this particular cake. So, of course, we'll, you know, shed a small tear for the cake that never was. In this case, though, the rest of the Zeta Division need to pick up the pieces. Taro can no longer save them. They need to find another route to win this game and get to the upper bracket.
They need to find a way to try and get some of these bottom players further up the rankings, because it's definitely a bit of a struggle at the moment. As you can see, Rageblade also being built on this Smolder in the backline as well, but at the moment, not a Varus 2-star. This Pyro maybe not as strong as what it is for now, but the big thing about this composition is this Nasus is a frontline beast right now. Dunking them.
You're not kidding. I mean, this is absolutely wild. And again, you know, we know that Pyro can be very, very good, though definitely not as popular with other compositions kind of crowding out, but I think you made a really good point, you know, by way of Panda, saying that there are routes, especially in this lobby, which had so many spatches spread around, opportunity knocks, and if you know that possibility exists, you can really make it work.
And the scaling is going to be there with the attack speed as well, which is so big for the likes of Varus, so big, even for like the likes of Nasus as well. You know, we did see that with Nasus, he is building a tank, and he is going for a more tanky version of Nasus, which is the normal. But with the extra attack speed that you do get from Pyro as well, it's definitely going to give you a lot of extra damage.
Varus getting the upgrade there as well is going to be absolutely huge. I mean, that's just going to be so much more punch into the team overall. Bear in mind, of course, we've also got the Smolder having the Dragon buff in as well, thanks to the Shyvana. So it will keep Smolder just a little bit safer. We can see, even with not a full set of items, the Pyro using it in one slot, giving a ton of attack speed, and just ripping into the board. Kato is looking really good here. And again, if we're looking for a player to pick up after Taro left off, maybe he's the one.
I mean, maybe he could be the one. I still think it's very difficult right now. I mean, being able to get a few wins there is really, really huge. Title is slowly going down the rankings as well, but now we're seeing a little bit of a split here. You know, two of the Wolves members are still sitting right at the top. I feel like for me right now, Leshao and Seren sitting 30 HP pretty much above the rest is such a big thing. And again, it's kind of similar to the last game. Can the catch-up potential happen for ZETA? I'm not too sure if they have the same cap as something like a 10 Portal, for example. Something like the 9 Fairy or something. I don't feel like that really can be there this time.
I think as well, if we can see a strong finish here from Wolves Esports, that's absolutely fantastic. If they go into the upper bracket, they've got a chance to go 2 wins and get themselves a guaranteed spot in playoffs. You really want to be trying to be dominant in a win if you can make it happen, because it's only going to get tougher from here. Kez is up to bat here on 16 HP in a rough spot. We can see the front line is just about holding. I think Kez will stay on for another round. Title not going to take out the teammate at least.
And not taking out, I think that's a pretty good loss in general. I feel like, Title's going to get a little bit of HP back anyway, and obviously is still playing with Tiny Titans. But again, you're just seeing across the board at the moment, it's very difficult for ZETA, because eventually they are going to be playing against each other. YGQF, though, is on a 5-loss streak. Could be our next person knocked out here at the moment. As we see at the bottom of our screens at the moment, we're seeing a big overview of these compositions. A lot of 4-cost 2-stars, which is super surprising.
Also surprising is another cavalcade of emblems, because of course we needed more of them. Taro looking on Sally saying, I could have had another Sugarcraft emblem. I could be making 2 cakes by now.
I mean, the crazy thing is as well is that YGQF actually denying away the Pyro as well, which is such a big thing. He can actually use it on his board as well with the multicasters if he really wants to as well. We do see another Fairy. I'm not too sure. Is this 9 Fairy? It is!
Oh boy!
Another game of 9 Fairy, and it goes over to Wolves Esports as well. It goes over to Shirley as well, and it's such a big thing as well. We've seen already how well 9 Fairy can perform one of the best maybe vertical compositions outside of these big massive 10 ones. And a dragon on the board to help with keepers. It looks like Wolves at the moment are looking incredibly strong.
Yeah, just trying to hold on for a few moments more. If you can, especially if you can get 2 players into 5th and 6th out of the bottom 4, you're almost guaranteed the win in the game overall. The Dragon will do a great job of staying alive for an enormous amount of time. It's an absolute monster, well worth the investment. So no eliminations out of this round. The Keds, I believe, going down to 2 HP.
Really difficult now for ZETA Division to try and come back. The extra healing now on these units. We've seen it before. We've seen it again. Title also going down to 4 HP. 2 of ZETA Division's players at the moment are on 1 HP. If both of them get knocked out in the next round, that's going to be Wolves Esports securing this series.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, certainly coming into this one, ZETA Division as the favourites, it would be an ignominious end to their first series. Of course, lessons will be learned one way or the other, but certainly you want to at least be fighting to the finish line on a final game like this.
No, you have to. You have to make sure that you try and find something. Try and find something miraculous. Try and communicate to see who could be coming up against who. Hey, we could be seeing a situation where Kez comes up against Title. It's not. So it's going to be Kaito coming up against Kesper. Has he made his board weak enough?
I don't think he has.
To actually make sure that he doesn't knock out his teammate.
This will be an absolute disaster. The board is getting run through. The Pyro board is burning away his teammate. Kez goes out. We now require a top 2. Title is still in the fight. He cannot afford to lose for the rest of the game, or it will be over.
That's it.
And it is just like that. We will, of course, run out the rest of the game, but ZETA Division have officially lost the series. Wolves Esports 2-1 will enter the upper bracket.
All 3 players of ZETA at the moment sitting at the bottom, 8th, 7th and 6th. So even if there is a first place at the moment from Kaito, who is on a win streak right now, there is no way that they can catch up with points right now. And smiles on the faces of Wolves Esports. They know their job is done, and this is really, really big for CN and really big for this first seed coming out of China.
Oh boy. And you would never expect at this point in the game to be able to sit back and say, you know what, we've still got a little bit of MVP business we can sort of sort out here by where we go, but ultimately the job has been done. And again, I think, you know, when you're going to be coming out of this one, when you're going to try and fight for the top seed out of Group A, to finish a game this dominatingly, I think really sends a message to the rest of the group that you are a favorite now.
The big thing is that the first 2 games were definitely back and forth. I feel like the first 2 games were very, very close, but as you mentioned with this game, this is nothing but a stomp by Wolves Esports. All 3 players on ZETA Division were not able to kind of get that extra bit of gold, get that extra bit of health in. Even Title as well. Metabolic Accelerator, Tiny Titans, still not being able to find a win condition is so big here. But we're seeing the power of the multi-strikers as well. Maybe not the maybe not the itemization that we thought of, but definitely a lot more raw power. But it doesn't come up against the power of the 5 Pyro.
I think the original recipe Pyro is always going to be that little bit more crispy. At this point, again, we're just running for the formalities of finishing out the game. As I suppose, no, this is really damning of the Fate praise. It could have been a worse loss for ZETA Division, but only barely.
I don't think it matters how much you win or lose. I think it means as long as you get the win, as long as you get the win, as long as you get the loss, I mean, that's all that matters in the end. I mean, it would have been a great confidence boost, I feel like, for Wolves Esports if they would have got all their members in the top 4. Of course, I totally understand what you're saying, but I think in the end, do an incredible job here, making sure that they're able to get it as well is so big. 6 Pyro now for Kaito in the end. It's definitely board that we wasn't expecting to see today, but you can see the power that it can deliver.
And I think this is going to be one of the interesting things to be keeping track of. Again, we're in our first series of the day. There's 3 more series to do before we're even done with our first of our 4 days of competition here. You know, I think, here in the 3rd game, and then the 3rd games across the whole of today, this is the time where we're going to see teams bringing out that secret tech that ideally they wouldn't have needed to use. So, if we're here for the Wolves, if they could have made the series 2-0, we may have never seen the Pyro side of things. They may have been holding that back to say, if we need this, it's a breaking case of emergency comp.
And I think in general, like the meta in general for the 4v4 is definitely going to be a lot more interesting, especially for like us and the viewers as well. That in this game, for example, right? Not a single reroll this game. I mean, you speak about how like the 1v1v1v, what you get what I mean. That sort of meta is like the kind of solo meta is like. Everyone's playing different rerolls, but I feel like in just terms of this competition, how the 4v4 works, it's all about trying to reach the maximum cap. Loose streaking can be a little bit difficult, but reaching these spatulas, reaching these emblems that you can build can definitely be a huge win condition.
So again, for anyone who is tuning in, we're just running out the last parts of ZETA Division versus Wolves Esports. Our first series, opening up of Group A. Already, Wolves Esports have secured themselves the win. We're just doing the last sort of formalities to make sure that everything runs out. Of course, the series coming up after this one is T1 versus Weibo. Of course, a lot of people are excited to see that one as well. So we'll bring you it as soon as possible. But we can't deny the Wolves their victory lap here because they have more than earned it in this game.
Oh, definitely more than earned it. And I think in general, I think as a region, I think CN is definitely going to be really hyped up in this as well. I think CN as a region have definitely been a region that are very, I guess split apart has not been the right word, but they're not a team and they're not a region that really work together. I feel like, I feel like some of the players are definitely separate, but I feel like in this format, it's definitely brought the CN players together as a region in terms of playing in this group format, which also in general just helps the player in general because you get to see a different aspect of the game. You get to know about different knowledge from other players as well, which is going to benefit them a lot, especially in this format.
I mean, I would kind of point out, I suppose, on if we look to the set championship scene, that when you look at those top 8s across multiple championships, even if the Chinese players haven't been winning the championships recently, there's normally 2 or 3 players, very often in that top 8 anyway. Almost a 4v4 team's worth of players that are consistently performing at a very, very high level. So if we can take that as an indication of the overall region strength, I think this is giving us a lot of information about the tournament overall.
Oh, definitely. It's going to be exciting to see how the rest of the tournament goes as we can see the Smolder 2 being upgraded as well. I'm really curious to see the power of this composition because that Nasus in the front line can definitely tank up a lot, and this Smolder's going to be flying around trying to do as much damage as possible.
And bear in mind as well, he is a Dragon activated Smolder, also with a Hextech Gunblade. If you're a melee unit trying to catch up on him, you're going to have nightmares for weeks. But fortunately, you don't need to worry about that because you're not even getting close to him in the first place.
I mean, as I mentioned, that Nasus at the front line, I think, is one of the best forecasts I feel like in the game right now. We've just been so beefy in the front line. And also, I think people kind of underestimate how much damage Nasus can do as well, even as a tank. You know, being able to just dog enemies left, right, and center is extremely exciting to see. As we see, all 4 of the players at the moment very, very low on health. And you can see that when the Pyros finish their combat, they drop these little cinders that drop on the floor as well, which you can actually pick up, which gives a little bit of extra attack speed over to the rest of Pyro units as well. So not only is it a strong comp that gives you a lot of raw power, in terms of especially 5 Pyro, you can get the Execute as well, which is going to help, but you get that scaling as well in there.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the vertical Pyro just giving you, even aside from the passive collection, you've got a massive amount of attack speed in there already. And I just want to follow up on what you're saying about Nasus, because of course being praised on analyst test coming in, it's worth bearing in mind, that his, you're talking about the extra damage he was dealing, scaling off his max health, especially with the setup he's got there. That he's going to be able to just be an absolute unit though against the Fairy 9. This is a board that is on somewhat of a different planet though.
Hold on.
Apparently, maybe? No. Okay. For a second, I was a believer.
I mean, honestly, I feel like Pyro actually did pretty well there against 9 Fairy. I mean, there's a lot of hype behind
shockingly
9
well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hype behind 9 Fairy, right? Especially when you get the Radiant items and the Fairy items, getting so much healing. But you're seeing the power in which the Executes can come in with the Pyro as well. But that is unfortunately going to mean that Kaito is going to be out. So it's a 1-2-3 finish here for Wolves Esports, and they are flying in this last game of the series.
Yeah, I mean, that's a, it's the final insult, unfortunately, for ZETA's division to not even, it would give you some amount of comfort to take the first place in the lobby, even if, ultimately we didn't change the result of the game. But it's worth kind of bringing into the conversation some of the things that happen after those player eliminations, because, as much as you might want to see Kaito come through and succeed, you're actually working against 3 people who have only got you to focus on. So whatever direction you go for, they're going to be just taking those units immediately. You're going to be hunted down and taken out without really the chance to function.
No, it's extremely difficult, especially when you're the last person left, right? It's really difficult to try and make sure that you are the one that kind of gets a tempo going as well, as we see multiple dragons across the board. All right, this
flight of dragons.
This dragon charm costs like 15 gold as well, so it's not cheap, but it definitely gives you a lot of power as well. Unfortunately, we don't see the dragon head-to-head as well, but definitely a cool way. And I feel like the set mechanic in general is just really, really fun. I think it offers a lot of opportunities for these players, especially in the later stages of the game. You're seeing a lot more aggressive roll downs as well to try and hit the charm that you want to, and sometimes even in the early game as well, things like the Minor Polymorph being really good to try and upgrade your units.
Well, I think, and it also adds this extra layer to the 4v4 as well. As much as we've got the more straightforward applications where you just say you want to stay alive for a round, so you bring the dragon in, we've got, in this case, where you care so much about where other people are finishing and what they are doing, which gives you this extra incentive to find exactly the right one.
It looks like we're going to go to our final lap, our final sprint here for Wolves Esports, being able to secure this first series of the day. And I mean, you're looking at the boards in general, right? We have a 2-star Syndra on one side with the Karma. We know that Karma was going to be very powerful in this meta with one of the strongest forecasts as well. But carrying the Syndra early game has been so powerful